Chapter 466. Fang Zhao gave Nanfeng and the other two the day off. However, Nanfeng felt that he was a responsible assistant and a busy person. He left a message for Fang Zhao and came over early in the morning. After Fang Zhao had left Huangart, many people had approached him for collaborations. They felt that since his studies were over, he could start his business activities. However, Fang Zhao had no intention of participating in any business activities. Even though they were rejected, most people didn't give up. If they couldn't find Fang Zhao, they would look for Nanfeng. After all, Nanfeng had worked in the Huangzhou entertainment circle before and had many employees who knew him. Contacting Nanfeng was much easier than contacting Fang Zhao. Thus, Nanfeng, who had given himself the title of part-time manager, was full of energy and rushed over with work. Nanfeng summarized the matters on hand and told Fang Zhao. He scanned the room but didn't see Curly Hair. In this small team, besides their boss, Curly Hair, who was worth close to 300 million, was the one Nanfeng cared about the most. Where's Curly Hair? Curly Hair had been very excited ever since moving in. Why wasn't there any sign of him today? Had he played too much yesterday and found a place to sleep? Fang Zhao checked the time and said, "He went swimming and is back now." Nanfeng opened his mouth and wanted to say, "Are you stupid to let a dog worth close to 300 million play in the sea by himself?" But he didn't dare to in the end. Putting down the documents in his hands, Nanfeng said, "Boss, I'm going to the beach to take a look." Nanfeng received a call from Yin Biao the moment he stepped out. He asked if he and Zhuyu needed to come over. Nanfeng looked around the beach as he answered the call. At this moment, Curly Hair had just come out of the sea. He shook off the water and ran back to the house. Under the morning sun, Nanfeng felt that Curly Hair's fur had a metallic sheen to it as he ran. As expected of our dog worth close to 300 million, he has a metallic sheen even when basking in the sun. Nanfeng exclaimed. He took a photo and sent it to the Three Salted Fishes private chat group. Even the footprints on the beach are so cute. Yin Biao and Zhuyu. Nanfeng continued, "I turned on the camera for you guys. Did you see it? That running silhouette is sparkling. Our little Curls is indeed the brightest pup in the entire district. Yin Biao. Also the most expensive one, right? Boss he." Nanfeng wanted to say that Boss was stupid, but he remembered Fang Zhao's hearing and changed the topic. Boss doesn't have time to keep an eye on the dog. We have to keep a closer eye on it, especially when it swims in the sea. It's too dangerous. As he spoke, Nanfeng jogged over to Curly Hair. Curly Hair, who had been stopped by Nanfeng, shook his wet fur. Hick, puff, Curly Hair burped and farted. Nanfeng was excited. He regretted that he hadn't recorded the scene earlier. This is the first time I've seen dog fart with my own eyes. As expected of a dog worth close to 300 million. Regardless of whether it's a burp or a fart, the breath is so long. If I take a closer look, there's even the smell of gunpowder smoke. Yin Biao and Zhuyu. This comrade's brain had been deeply corrupted by money. There was no cure for brainless bragging. Nanfeng kept repeating, "My dog is just different from the rest." On the other side, Curly Hair had already skirted around Nanfeng and rushed back into the house. He looked at the time. 8:02 a.m. Before it left, it had told Fang Zhao to return before 8 a.m. It took more than 2 minutes. Curly Hair had to explain himself. "I came ashore before 8 a.m. I only wanted to shake off the water outside before entering the house." Nanfeng even stopped me. Curly Hair still wanted to explain himself, but he shut up after hearing Nanfeng's footsteps. "Go to the dryer and dry your fur first," Fang Zhao said. By the time Curly Hair came out of the dryer, Fang Zhao had already let Nanfeng leave. Fang Zhao looked at the gaps between Curly Hair's teeth. Besides some green algae residue, there was nothing else. "How much did you eat this time?" Fang Zhao asked. At this point, Curly Hair was emboldened. "I ate one fish, only one fish. The rest were just snacks." Curly Hair wanted to prove that his appetite wasn't that big. Many times, he had heard people say that raising a pet was a waste of money, especially those that ate a lot and were easily discarded. Curly Hair had to prove himself. His appetite wasn't that big. "You really only ate one fish? Aren't you hungry?" Fang Zhao asked. He was familiar with Curly Hair's appetite. "Really? Not hungry, Curly Hair affirmed. You secretly ate a whale? No, I didn't eat a whale. I didn't eat any other protected marine species either. I didn't even eat a single scale. The fish I ate was just a little longer than me. It just looks like a protected marine species, but it isn't. I looked at it a few times and confirmed it, Curly Hair hurriedly said. This had to be explained. He didn't want to face the wall. What snacks did you eat? Fang Zhao asked again. Just 2 seashells. I ate some seaweed on my way back. There were also some I don't know the names of. I just licked them, but they weren't tasty. Mimhm, Fang Zhao looked at Curly Hair carefully. Besides being a little excited, there wasn't any other abnormality. Fang Zhao didn't know if Curly Hair really didn't feel hungry, or if that was all he said. Hence, he decided to pour a bowl of dog food for him. He had just taken a step when he heard Curly Hair burp. Fang Zhao's footsteps paused. His expression turned solemn as he carefully distinguished the scents in the air. Fang Zhao placed the bowl of dog food to the side and walked over to Curly Hair, who was stretching, and squatted down to take a closer look. Fang Zhao thought of something and asked, "What did the fish you ate today look like? Have you seen it in a book?" Curly Hair. It looked a little like one of the protected marine animals. Fang Zhao brought the electronic atlas over and let Curly Hair point it out. This type, it only looks a little similar, but it definitely isn't. I can see it. Curly Hair was a little pleased. Luckily, he had specially observed the fish when he had been hunting and remembered the differences between that fish and the protected marine animals in the atlas. Under Fang Zhao's questioning, Curly Hair recounted his findings in detail. He even pointed out the scales one by one, including the T carved on the belly of that fish that wasn't easy to notice. Curly Hair remembered it all clearly. Fang Zhao picked up a pen and drew a diagram based on Curly Hair's description. Fang Zhao compared the direction this fish had swum to the map and various aspects of the situation he understood and drew a route. After pondering for a moment, he marked out 3 of the routes. Among these 3 routes, one of them led to the harbor about 100 kilometers away from Qian City. Fang Zhao looked at the drawn route and the T on the fish's body and asked Curly Hair, "How did it taste when you ate it? How was its hardness?" Curly Hair was puzzled. "I don't know. Anything bigger than me was swallowed directly." Fang Zhao. What perfect logic. From this point, Curly Hair had completely abided by a type of wild animal instinct, using the lowest energy expenditure to exchange for the highest energy intake. If he could swallow it directly, why did he have to chew it in batches? It wasn't like he couldn't swallow it. So what was the point of putting in so much effort? There wasn't anyone around to see. Curly Hair didn't know if he had done something wrong when he saw Fang Zhao's silence. He carefully continued to explain himself. Although I don't know how it tastes, I feel that its composition is probably more complex than dog food. Definitely more complex than dog food. Should I chew it up and taste it next time? The books I read didn't mention the meat texture of those protected marine animals. Without a comparison, I don't know if it's special compared to other similar-looking fish. It's just that I still feel a little bloated after eating it. Fang Zhao shifted his gaze away from the notebook and rubbed Curly Hair's head. No need. You did very well. Curly Hair felt at ease after receiving praise and wagged his tail happily. How do you feel now? Fang Zhao asked. Feel? After eating that fish, it's like eating compressed biscuits. So full. Curly Hair even emphasized, my appetite isn't that big. Fang Zhao still wasn't assured and gave Curly Hair a simple checkup. After moving to the new home, the equipment that had been used to examine Curly Hair had also been moved over. The results showed that Curly Hair didn't have a single scar on his body and was very healthy. However, his blood test results were abnormal. His heavy metal levels had exceeded the norm. Fortunately, they were only slightly higher than usual. In the past, Curly Hair's blood levels had been higher than other dogs. Now that he had swallowed something that resembled a bionic torpedo, there were actually only these few changes. This surprised Fang Zhao. Upon closer inspection, the luster of Curly Hair's fur seemed to have changed slightly. In the past, Nanfeng had even given Curly Hair dog care, but there hadn't been such a luster. Curly Hair's fur couldn't be easily changed by ordinary chemicals. These were all changes that had occurred overnight. Just in case, Fang Zhao still tied a miniature detector to Curly Hair's leg so that he could be informed immediately if anything happened to Curly Hair's body. Don't go into the water for the next 2 days, Fang Zhao said. All right. Curly Hair had gone out to play to his heart's content this time. Furthermore, he was a little sleepy from eating so much that he would just watch television and sleep at home for the next 2 days. The next time you run far away and find a fish that can fill you up, if you really want to eat it, just swallow it. Don't bite through it. Come back and tell me immediately after eating. Okay. Curly Hair wagged his tail happily. I'll go look for it the next time I'm hungry. Curly Hair felt that one meal could last him for at least half a month. This would save Fang Zhao a lot of money. The only problem was that he would always burp after eating. Chapter 467. Curly Hair, who had eaten his fill and hadn't been scolded, yawned and crawled into his kennel to sleep. Fang Zhao had originally intended to take a look around the vicinity. He had even asked the property management how to rent a speedboat yesterday. His studies were over, and he had completed his thesis. He had intended to relax and go out to sea to fish for a few days. At the same time, he would also catch some fresh seafood for his rabbit. However, the matter that Curly Hair had brought back made Fang Zhao abandon his original plans. Returning to his study, Fang Zhao scanned the drawing he had just drawn in his notebook, divided it into several screens, and opened up a map of Yenzhou. He marked out a region and placed it in front of him along with the drawing from before. The T represented tomorrow's empire. That organization that loved to launch sneak attacks and couldn't wait to bring back the period of destruction. The first time Fang Zhao had come into contact with them had been during his military service on planet Baiji. He had also encountered them once on Whale Island. Looking at the 3 routes drawn on the map, Fang Zhao analyzed the other party's objective. As someone who had spent close to 100 years during the period of destruction, Fang Zhao was still very sensitive to many things. Some influences had already seeped into his soul. Even if he had a different body and a different background, he wouldn't be able to get rid of them after living in the peaceful era of the new era for so long. Curly Hair's smoky burp seemed to have triggered Fang Zhao's senses in an instant. During the period of destruction, smoke represented war and bloodshed. D. As he was thinking, his personal terminal beeped. Fang Zhao shifted his attention away from the drawing and checked the notification. It was the miniature monitoring device he had tied to Curly Hair's leg. If there were any abnormalities, he would be notified. The screen that popped up displayed the real-time monitoring results. An hour ago, the heavy metal content in Curly Hair's blood had only been slightly over the limit. Now, it was rising rapidly. No, it should be said that it was a rapid change. Quite a few types of metal content suddenly rose and then dropped rapidly. There were even some heavy metal elements that shouldn't exist in a normal dog's body. These metal elements were probably from what Curly Hair had eaten today. Humans would also ingest some non-essential elements from food, but the situation before his eyes was clearly different. In less than 10 seconds, according to the measuring device, Curly Hair's body's concentration of a certain metal element dropped from the highest warning value to 0. Then, it rose again from 0 to a jaw-dropping value. Among all the creatures Fang Zhao knew of, there was no creature that could produce such a change. For example, according to the real-time measurement results of the instrument, there were several heavy metal elements in it. If placed in the body of a normal person, the person would not be able to survive. Not even dogs. However, Curly Hair's vital signs hadn't disappeared. Fang Zhao could still hear him snoring rhythmically. But this sudden change in the results of the instrument was not normal at all. Is the detector broken? Fang Zhao quickly walked over to Curly Hair's kennel and looked at the snoring Curly Hair. Fang Zhao paused for a moment and placed a finger on Curly Hair's nose to test his breathing. Curly Hair liked to snore when he was asleep. He wasn't a short-snout breed, nor was he overweight, but he liked to snore. Fang Zhao had even brought him to a vet for a checkup, but nothing had been found. At this time, the dog was snoring. Its breathing was strong and not hurried, but the temperature of the air it exhaled was abnormally high, much higher than the temperature measured by the detector on the dog's leg. As a warm-blooded animal, the temperature of its breath was twice as high as its body temperature. Was that normal? Fang Zhao patted Curly Hair's head. Curly Hair, Curly Hair continued to snore. Fang Zhao patted him again. The game console has been stolen. Oh woo. Curly Hair struggled and growled twice. He licked his nose and changed his position to continue sleeping. He shifted from lying on his back to lying on his side and even moved his forelegs as if he wanted to run. After a while, Curly Hair continued to snore. Fang Zhao's expression became even more solemn. He couldn't even wake up from the keyword game console has been stolen. It seemed like the situation was more serious than he had imagined. However, he had never encountered such a situation before. He had never even heard of it, so Fang Zhao didn't know what to do. Should he forcefully wake Curly Hair up or continue observing? He wasn't sure if forcefully waking Curly Hair up would be harmful, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Just as Fang Zhao was pondering what to do, the alarm from the detector became more urgent and sharp. The changes on the personal terminal's display made one's heart tremble. Heart rate, pulse, blood pressure, and other indicators were all changing rapidly. This was just what the detector could detect. Who knew how much more than the detector could detect? The screen on the display flickered. The image seemed to be distorted by some kind of force. The light source in the room also became unstable and flickered, as if it had encountered some kind of interference. The electrical appliances that were currently working emitted urgent alarms. Waves of tinnitus caused intense discomfort. Fortunately, Fang Zhao could still endure it. If it had been anyone else, they might have already lost consciousness. An icy chill seemed to flow through the air. Fang Zhao's intuition, which he had cultivated during the period of destruction, could clearly sense the unknown danger from Curly Hair's body. He hurriedly took a few steps back. The detector's data collection was interrupted, and the sharp alarms came to an abrupt end. The connection between the detector and the personal terminal was severed. The lights in the room exploded at the same time. The power socket crackled with electricity. A cold light reflected off the metal suddenly appeared. It was huge, like a claw. It was so fast that it seemed to be a phantom. Bang! The dust and debris on the ground were sent flying. The sudden strong air current made the curtains flap loudly. The entire three-story building shook violently. Then, the metallic glow disappeared. It had only been the blink of an eye. It seemed like an illusion. Fang Zhao fell silent as he looked at the huge claw mark and the cracks on the floor. There was actually a chair in the area covered by the huge claw mark. Nanfeng had bought it at a high price as a gift for Fang Zhao to celebrate his new home. When Nanfeng had bought the chair, he had felt that solid wood was more classy. Solid wood furniture in the new era was considered a luxury item. However, the seller also said that people with dogs could choose sturdier furniture, especially the legs of tables, chairs, and benches, which could not be chewed on. Thus, Nanfeng had chosen an alloy one. Sturdy enough. But at this moment, the high-grade alloy chair that the seller had touted as sturdy enough had already been smashed into the floor like a pancake. Curly Hair, who had been sleeping at the side, seemed to wake up from a nightmare. He stared with his innocent dog eyes. His surroundings were a mess. There were a few large cracks on the floor, and he could even see downstairs through the cracks. There were also sinister footprints on the ground. Curly Hair jumped out of his kennel in shock and bared his teeth. Enemy attack. Oh, whoa. Curly Hair ran over quickly when he saw Fang Zhao. He stood beside Fang Zhao and growled at the huge claw mark that had appeared in the room. Curly Hair's ears were pressed back, the fur on his neck stood on end, the deep wrinkles on his nose, and his exposed fangs showed that this dog had entered battle mode. He was like a brave warrior who had sworn to defend his territory against foreign invaders. His expression was extremely ferocious. Oh, whoa. Fang Zhao. Chapter 468. Fang Zhao had intended to keep a low profile and rest for a while, but things just wouldn't stop. The commotion here was too big. The security network installed in the district had detected the commotion and immediately called to inquire. May I know if you have encountered any trouble over there? Do you need us to send someone over to help? No need. My dog is just causing trouble, Fang Zhao replied. The property manager smiled in response. Fine. If you say it's a dog causing trouble, then it's a dog causing trouble. On the surface, I believe you. The property manager wouldn't pursue the matter. As long as it didn't affect other residents or endanger other people's lives, it didn't matter if the entire building was demolished. Although the houses were quite a distance away, Fang Zhao had just moved in, and many people were paying attention to the movements of this Yenzhou celebrity. If there was any movement, they would know. Thus, when Nanfeng and the other two rushed over after receiving Fang Zhao's call, there were already other people coming over to inquire. A middle-aged businessman with a dog on a leash said he was here for a visit. His eyes were filled with suspicion. Fang Zhao didn't let him in, only saying that the house was a bit messy and that he would entertain him in the courtyard, where there were tables and chairs. Dog causing trouble? Sigh, I can understand your feelings. Some troubles are only understood by us dog owners. The man sighed as if he had been through it all. After chatting for a while, the businessman felt that he had obtained enough information. He wouldn't be able to get any more information, so he left with the dog. He turned around and told his friends in the same district. He caused quite a ruckus over there today. Seems like he smashed quite a few things. I didn't see the dog. I suspect he was beating the dog just now. No, some people are two-faced. It's fine when they are outside, but who knows what they're doing at home, If there's too much pressure outside, they will vent at home. Especially these kinds of celebrities, who have bad tempers in private. Everyone has secrets. If there's any commotion, just blame it on the dog. After all, dogs can't talk. The people living in this district wouldn't casually leak information to the media. They would only speak in private. Very quickly, a piece of news spread in certain small circles. It was said that Fang Zhao had violent tendencies and wasn't honest in private. At the same time, there were all sorts of rumors. Some said Fang Zhao had been set up by an opponent, caused by a relationship dispute, attacked by a terrorist, and so on. There were also indifferent bystanders who thought they had found the truth. He had just moved to a new place, and now something had happened. Who had Fang Zhao offended? Fang Zhao knew what this bunch of people were discussing in private, but he had no intention of paying attention. He got Nanfeng to repair the house and handle this matter in a low-key manner. The footprints where curly hair had damaged were too obvious, so Fang Zhao could only destroy the footprints himself. This way, the already cracked floor had a hole in it. On the second day after they moved in, the newly renovated building had to undergo another major renovation. Yin Biao and Zuoyu's faces were full of shame. With such destructive power, someone must have launched a sneak attack. This was the dereliction of duty of their bodyguards. Even though Fang Zhao had given them the day off, they had personally supervised the installation of the security systems in and out of the house. Yet they had not been of any use at all. Sure enough, it was still their responsibility. They had let down the high salary that their boss had given them. The two of them discussed how to upgrade the house's security system. Nanfeng's face was pale. His trembling hand touched the floor slab where the chair was embedded. What kind of force was needed to flatten an alloy chair that was said to be able to easily withstand the weight of an elephant? The first floor was still all right, but the second floor was even more damaged. It was a complete mess. Inside the house, half of the newly purchased household appliances had been destroyed. 2/3 of the lights needed to be replaced, and the walls needed to be repainted. Various scenarios of assassination, revenge, and murder of passion flashed through Nanfeng's mind. He was extremely worried about Fang Zhao's personal safety. He didn't dare ask why, and seeing Fang Zhao's attitude, he didn't intend to say anything either. They could only keep all their doubts to themselves. "Boss, do you want to hire a few more people?" Nanfeng asked. "No need." Fang Zhao let Nanfeng handle the renovations and called Curly Hair, who had been curled up in a corner, into the study. They had been on the second floor. Fortunately, the house was sturdy. Otherwise, it would have collapsed. It was also fortunate that they had moved. If they had stayed in the previous house, the residents downstairs might have suffered from the impact. Fang Zhao called Curly Hair in and shut the study door to isolate the sound. Curly Hair was still doubting his dog life. He had been in a state of shock ever since Fang Zhao had told him the truth. The degree of shock was far greater than when he had first learned that he had sung while gaming. "You really don't remember?" Fang Zhao asked. "I really don't remember." Curly Hair absolutely didn't believe that he was the kind of dog that would tear down a house. Fang Zhao nodded and took out a recording. Although all the surveillance cameras in the house were broken, there was a recording before they were broken. It was the kind of noise that sounded like tinnitus in the ears. Listen. Curly Hair's ears twitched. Gradually, he went from being convinced that he wasn't that kind of dog to hesitation. If it was for any other reason, Nanfeng could still understand. But if it was really to raise a dog, then that was too. On this day, Nanfeng concluded a life lesson from his boss. Raising pets makes one poor. Chapter 469. Tomorrow, 2 chapters? Future Heavenly King will be updated tomorrow. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 470. The islands on this planet were easy to purchase, and there were many choices. Nanfeng selected a few and showed them to Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao picked one. The island owner was ecstatic to have a buyer asking for an island. He had seen more and more people investing in foreign planets and had gotten anxious. He wanted to sell this island as soon as possible, so he took a step back during negotiations. The transaction was quick. Feng Zhao had asked for an island the day before and settled it the next day. Nanfeng felt helpless seeing Feng Zhao settle the paperwork so quickly. Feng Zhao doesn't know how to invest. He needs a wise investment advisor. Although he didn't know what had happened in the house that day, there was no need to rush to buy an island, right? Sigh, boss should just focus on his music and art. Investing would be a huge loss. Nanfeng wasn't the only one who thought this way. The island owner also felt that Feng Zhao was foolish, coming over to buy an island on this planet when its prices were dropping. If this wasn't foolish, what was? He was still too young and impulsive. Feng Zhao's new island wasn't too big, but it was enough for Curly Hair to move around. Its location was rather remote and some distance from the various continents. It didn't even have a distinctive shape and wasn't well known at all. Furthermore, the original island owner hadn't lived there in close to 20 years. He only sent people over to clean it up twice a year. It was a very primitive island. The period of destruction had engulfed the entire world. There was no utopia. This island had also experienced the period of destruction. After 500 years, it had recovered to its current flourishing state. The house on the island had been built more than 50 years ago. Due to frequent storms, it had been upgraded twice. Feng Zhao didn't make any major changes. It was fine as long as it was sturdy enough to live in. After the security system was installed, Feng Zhao let Nanfeng and the other two return to await further orders. The island wasn't big, so food was limited. Most of it was shipped in from outside. Feng Zhao hoarded some supplies and would get Yin Biao and Zui Yu to deliver them every once in a while when he lacked supplies. After receiving the copyright fees, Feng Zhao bought 2 more flying transports that could only fly within the atmosphere. His wallet, which had just started to bulge, was empty again. Nanfeng and the other 2 felt their hearts ache for him. All of them had the thought of, is my boss crazy? One of the 2 flying transports was placed on the island, while the other was used to transport goods for Nanfeng and the other 2. Boss, are you going to stay here alone? Zui Yu asked worriedly. Yeah. Feng Zhao looked much calmer. Do we really not need more manpower? Yin Biao also asked. No need. Then, boss, contact us immediately if you need anything. We'll be on standby. Nanfeng boarded the aircraft while looking back repeatedly. After watching Nanfeng and the other 2 leave in the flying transport, Feng Zhao returned to the house and called Curly Hair out from his kennel. Now, Curly Hair's mental state had completely changed from, I can't be this kind of dog, to, should I go out and earn money? Curly Hair had originally thought that the fish he had swallowed would last him half a month. He hadn't expected that Curly Hair would start to feel hungry in less than a week. Feng Zhao came out with a big bag of dog food, the kind that came in a big bag of 50 kilograms. You eat. I'll watch you eat from the side, Feng Zhao said. Can I swallow it directly? Sure. Curly Hair licked his nose and walked over to the bag of dog food. Then, Feng Zhao saw what seemed to be a big mouth. The silver metal flashed coldly. The 50-kilogram bag of dog food was gone. Are you full? Feng Zhao asked. Curly Hair hesitated for a bit before nodding. Still, a little hungry. That meant he hadn't eaten his fill. Fang Zhao came out with another 50-kilogram bag of dog food. Can you swallow it slower this time? Slow down your swallowing? Curly Hair nodded decisively this time. Swallow slowly. This time, Fang Zhao saw it even more clearly. The dog's head had changed, but the rest of its body remained in the shape of a normal dog. The slightly long and curly dog fur seemed to have retracted back into Curly Hair's body. The transformed dog's head was a little blurry and seemed to be made out of some kind of metal. Fang Zhao couldn't see what it was exactly, but he could see a big mouth with sharp teeth that swallowed the 50-kilogram bag of dog food. Easy as pie. Not to mention 50 kilograms, even 100 kilograms could be swallowed without any pause. Fang Zhao fell into deep thought as he watched this scene. Perhaps this dog couldn't simply be classified as a carbon-based life form. It might even exist in another form. It was usually a dog. What would it be after transforming? A metal dog? A life form made out of unknown metals? The cameras in the house had malfunctioned as expected. Only a portion of what had been recorded had been disrupted from the start of the transformation. Fang Zhao looked at the other surveillance cameras in the house. The ones that were closer had also suffered serious malfunctions. The ones that were more than 20 meters away had fewer malfunctions, but the footage had also been distorted. All electronic equipment had been affected. Fortunately, Fang Zhao had prepared a lot when he had moved in. Curly Hair didn't know about these changes, and electronic equipment couldn't be used. Thus, Fang Zhao went to the warehouse to search and brought out the fitting mirror left behind by the previous island owner. Curly Hair looked at the mirror and swallowed another bag of dog food, but this time, he almost choked. He was dumbstruck. He nearly peed his pants and frighted his appearance in the mirror. Indeed, he didn't know what he looked like unless he looked in the mirror. The degree of shock was even greater than when he had found out that he had torn down the house in his dreams. However, no matter how great the shock was, it was still replaced by hunger. After this transformation a few times, Curly Hair felt exhausted. The 3 bags of dog food seemed to have been completely consumed. Hungry. Curly Hair had no choice but to run into the sea to look for food. This time, there weren't any other residents in the vicinity. Curly Hair didn't need to wait until night. After obtaining Fang Zhao's permission, he rushed into the sea to look for food. As if a switch had been flipped, Curly Hair's transformation became more frequent in the following period. Sometimes, when he was digging a hole for fun, his claws would suddenly enlarge and create a hole. Fang Zhao didn't dare let Curly Hair sleep in the house. What if Curly Hair destroyed the house in his excitement and dreamt of chasing a thief? Accompanying these frequent transformations was a huge demand for energy. Food. Fang Zhao really had no solution. He could only let Curly Hair run into the sea to look for food himself. Fang Zhao would always emphasize to Curly Hair some matters that needed to be taken note of. Curly Hair would go for a stroll in the sea every day. In a week, he had swallowed 2 bionic torpedoes near Yinzhou's coastal waters. However, one wouldn't last half a month, not even a week. If the transformations were too frequent, he would have to go out again every 2 or 3 days. Curly Hair was rather happy. He could eat his fill in one go and save money. However, after swallowing the 3rd bionic torpedo, he couldn't find any more. Curly Hair went to Yinzhou's coastal waters a few times, but he didn't see any more. Fang Zhao knew that those people from organization might have already given up on using bionic torpedoes. He just didn't know what those people were going to do next. Yinzhou's anti-terrorism efforts weren't bad. Even without Curly Hair swallowing the torpedoes, the chances of those bionic torpedoes being intercepted were very high. Without the torpedoes, Curly Hair could only change his target. This time, he planned to swim a little further. Fang Zhao didn't agree or object. He handed Curly Hair a set of comprehensive test papers. He had personally set the questions. The questions involved all sorts of critical situations, and some things that he had emphasized many times before. Curly Hair finished the set of questions very quickly. Out of a total of 100 points, he got 93 points. After deducting 7 points, Fang Zhao gave Curly Hair supplementary lessons before allowing Curly Hair to go out. This time, Curly Hair went out for slightly longer. He returned after 12 hours. When he returned, he was full of energy. It seemed like he had eaten and drunk his fill. What did you eat? Fang Zhao asked. I ate a huge chest. Curly Hair gave a simple recount of his experiences. In summary, he had been swimming and swimming ever since he left the island. It seemed like there was something to eat, and it seemed delicious, so he ate it. Fang Zhao asked a few more questions about the details and learned that the place where Curly Hair had found his food was a submarine that had sunk in the deep sea. The food that Curly Hair had mentioned was probably some kind of high-energy substance inside the submarine. Curly Hair had eaten 2 of the 8 large chests. Because of the distance, Curly Hair hadn't been able to control the changes in his body and hadn't been able to bring the chests over from the deep sea for Fang Zhao to see. At that time, Curly Hair had felt full after swallowing the first chest. He had wanted to bring another chest back to show Fang Zhao what it was, but he had ended up swallowing it. Curly Hair didn't want to swallow a third chest. Fang Zhao had warned him repeatedly, so he didn't dare to bite open the chest. He could only return to the island first. So full, Curly Hair said. It was rare for him to be full. Without a submarine, Fang Zhao had no way of seeing it. He could only guess based on Curly Hair's description. There wasn't enough information this time, and it was unknown how long ago the submarine had sunk. Curly Hair didn't recognize it, so Fang Zhao couldn't draw it out. He could only wait for Curly Hair to go foraging for food and provide clues. After Curly Hair ate his fill, the effects were obvious. From being unable to control the sudden changes at the start to being vaguely aware of the changes, Curly Hair was able to avoid unnecessary damage before the changes occurred. There weren't any more craters on the island. However, the changes became more frequent and intense. To prevent any abnormal energy fluctuations from being detected by patrolling planes or satellites in outer space, Fang Zhao made Curly Hair run into the sea every time he felt a change was about to occur. Being on land or in the sea didn't affect Curly Hair much. In the following month, Curly Hair ran out a few more times and swallowed the remaining chests in the sunken submarine in batches. Based on the information brought back by Curly Hair and the clues he had found, Fang Zhao could basically confirm that this was the submarine that had been sunk by the Yinzhou Navy 100 years ago. There were also rumors that there were at least 8 tons of Grade A power ore on the submarine. Many people had tried to salvage it, not for the submarine, but for the 8 tons of Grade A power ore. However, they had all returned empty-handed. It was easy to be swallowed up by undercurrents and attacked by deep-sea creatures. It was said that there was also a magnetic anomaly in that area. Communication was easily cut off, and submersibles were prone to malfunction. It wasn't worth it for a rumor that might not be true. Gradually, people forgot about the sunken submarine and the legendary 8 tons of Grade A power ore. Fang Zhao fell silent as he looked at the reason why the Yinzhou Navy had suddenly mobilized. His feelings were complicated. Chapter 471. Curly Hair didn't think much of it. After finishing all 8 boxes, he ran around a few more times, but he didn't find any more boxes. Fang Zhao had told him not to rashly swallow the underwater creatures there. Just scare them a little. Curly Hair could only chew on the submarine wreckage, especially the energy module. Above the sunken submarine, 3 fully armed submersibles cautiously approached the demonized trench. As they got closer to the rumored abyss danger zone, they encountered a few instances of communication interference. Fortunately, they didn't encounter any strong undercurrents during their dive. The extreme environment at the bottom of the sea made the submersibles feel somewhat constrained, and they were afraid of this unknown world. Humans had already ventured into space and other planets, but they still hadn't completely conquered the oceans. Many places in the deep sea were still forbidden zones. Smoothly approaching. Yes, if the map is correct, we will reach our destination very soon. No danger detected. Looks like our luck is pretty good today. They hadn't expected to succeed on their first try. This was just a probing operation. If they hadn't been forced, who would be willing to take the risk to come here? It was also strange. The 3 bionic torpedoes they had launched seemed to have suddenly disappeared from this world. The failure of all 3 torpedoes made them even more apprehensive of Yinzhou's coastal defenses. It was a truly powerful interception that made one's hair stand on end. Not even a sound had been heard. As a result, members of the T organization in other regions had immediately stopped their bionic torpedo attack plans, and gone to investigate this interception technology. They had reason to suspect that the bionic technology stolen from the military had a bug, or that the military had deliberately planted it and let them steal it. In order to steal the bionic technology, they had lost many people and exposed a few strongholds. From the looks of it now, this was a series of conspiracies against them. Crafty indeed. They had no choice but to change their original plans. The organization's top brass was already very dissatisfied with their Yinzhou branch. If they didn't contribute, they wouldn't be able to survive in the organization, and the consequences would be disastrous. They could either launch an attack or do something else to gain merit. After losing the 3 precious bionic torpedoes, the top brass had temporarily cut off most of their financial support, recalled all the bionic torpedoes, and halted their original plans. It seemed like they were going to leave them hanging for a while. The head of the organization's Yinzhou branch had been so worried recently that he was about to go bald. He had originally wanted to find a place with a lot of people and blow it up, such as some shopping malls in Yinzhou that did not have strict security checks. However, they were also worried that the organization's other plans would be ruined. Recently, the organization seemed to have made another move, but they had not received any news from their side. The operations of each branch were separated, so it was impossible to obtain accurate information. Furthermore, the Yinzhou military was watching them closely. They would probably be stopped before they even got close to the mall. There was no other way. If he wanted to make a contribution, he could only look for other ways, such as through supplies. After thinking about it, he set his goal on the submarine that had sunk more than 100 years ago. He had a predecessor who had been on the submarine that had sunk, and had been one of the people in charge of transporting the power ore. Unfortunately, they had encountered the Yinzhou Navy and had not been able to escape successfully. In the end, the submarine had been bombed and sunk. Not a single person on board had escaped. 8 tons of grade A power ore sank to the bottom of the sea. 8 tons. How long had it taken to accumulate 8 tons of grade A power ore? They're all fucking sunk. That incident had been a huge blow to the organization. It had been dispirited for a long time and had kept a low profile, entering a period of recuperation. Since then, the organization had never transported more than 2 tons of power ore at once. The grade A power ore had been transported separately, afraid of repeating the same mistake. The people in charge of transporting the power ore had been unlucky. The originally well-planned power or transportation plan had not expected to be interrupted by the Yinzhou Navy's impromptu exercise. It was said that the exercise had been held to commemorate the death of a certain important person during the period of destruction. They had not received any news at all. It had been too sudden. When they had heard the news, they had been stunned. Fucking Yinzhou Navy. What was the name of that important person from the period of destruction? His surname seemed to be Fong. Who cared what his name was? If he died, he died. It was said that the organization had planned to bomb the Cemetery of Martyrs many times, but the cemetery guards had been too difficult to deal with, and they had not succeeded even once. That organization held grudges. Ever since that 8-ton strike a century ago, every leader of that organization's Yinzhou branch had received a mission. As long as there was an opportunity, they were to blow up the tombs in the Yinzhou Cemetery for Martyrs, especially the tomb of the Fong family member. In a secret basement somewhere, the leader of the Yinzhou branch of the T organization was directing the salvage operation with a gloomy expression. If he had any other choice, he would not have set his sights on this submarine that had been submerged in the trench for 100 years. Although the price of grade A power ore had dropped with the discovery of more power ores, it was still worth about 14 billion. Fortunately, communication technology had improved rapidly. Although the salvage operation had been interrupted a few times, it was generally still fine. Seeing that they were nearing their target and had not encountered any undercurrents or attacks from deep-sea creatures, the heavens were indeed on their side. Stay alert and guard against attacks from deep-sea behemoths. Understood. But boss, are there really legendary behemoths here? One of the people in the submersible asked. No idea. The area we are approaching is very quiet. Who knows, at this depth, there might not be any fish or deep-sea behemoths. It's a dead pond. The documentary only captured some shadows. We can't be sure if it is the legendary deep-sea behemoth. There are even rumors that the documentary team is faking it. Although this was what they said, deep down, they still believe that there were deep-sea behemoths here. The people in the 3 submersibles on the salvage mission all raised their vigilance. Found it. There is indeed a sunken submarine there. The submarine that had been submerged here for 100 years was already somewhat unrecognizable. Find the first. An anxious voice sounded from the other end of the communication device. Yes, boss. The people in the 3 submersibles were also excited. 8 tons of grade A ore, worth more than 14 billion. After this, they would be rich. 3 submersibles, 1 on the mission, the other 2 for protection. But, boss, there is no ore detected. The boxes containing the ore are made of special materials and are very difficult to detect. You guys go closer and see if there are any such boxes. The 8 tons of ore should be divided into more than 8 boxes. After a while, the submersibles on the mission reported, Boss, the submarine is seriously damaged. All that's left is the wreckage. The edges of the parts that were cut off are uneven. It looks like it was bitten by a dog. This joke is not funny. The voice on the other end of the communication device was cold. Clearly, the mood was not good. Boss, I took a closer look. It really looks like a bite mark. There really is a deep-sea beast. The people in the submersibles were fearful. If it could bite the submarine to this extent, wouldn't it be easy for it to bite them? Honestly speaking, they would rather go to Yinzhou and bomb a tomb than feed the fish here. Find the boxes. The voice on the other end of the communication device roared. Yes. In the end, it was the 8 tons of grade A or that won over the fear of the deep-sea behemoth. But, boss, there is no box. This place is empty. A large part of the submarine is missing. The power cabin has also disappeared. Look at the fracture. It looks like it was freshly gnawed. Heavy breathing could be heard from the communication device. He was probably quite angry. He felt that everything he did during this period of time was not going well. Search again. Search the vicinity. See if there is. Fallen. Boss, what did you say? I can't hear you clearly. The connection was disconnected. However, they did not panic. During their dive, they had encountered a few instances of disconnection. It would be fine after a while. However, as they waited and waited, the communications did not recover. The submersible's control system seemed to be having problems, and the problems were increasing. This time, the people in the 3 submersibles panicked. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Quickly retreat. Let's return to the shallow seas first. The submersibles were getting more and more out of control. The controls were becoming less sensitive. They had only managed to get the submersible to rise a little when the submersible's control panel suddenly shut down as if it had lost power. Waves of tinnitus could be heard, and their consciousness started to blur. Elsewhere, Feng Zhao was on the line with Nanfeng. Nanfeng reported recent events to Feng Zhao. He had received many invitations for variety shows, news interviews, and collaborations. It was up to Feng Zhao to decide which to accept and which not to accept. Ever since Feng Zhao had moved to the island, Nanfeng's responsibilities had increased. However, he had no complaints and was actually rather happy. Feng Zhao had given him another raise. Of course, this was not the most important thing. What was important was that Nanfeng could get to know more people. This would be beneficial to his future career path. Then I will reject the variety shows and only accept the Yinzhou TV interview program. As for collaborations, before Nanfeng could finish his sentence, he heard Not long after, the communications were completely cut off. Nanfeng told Yin Biao and Zhuayu, "Didn't I say that such a remote and rundown island has poor reception? It's always unstable." Nanfeng and the other 2 were worried after losing contact with Feng Zhao. They had intended to head over to take a look, but they had received a warning from the Yinzhou Coastal Monitoring Station, saying that there had been a weak earthquake near a trench and that there had been a serious magnetic anomaly. Those heading out to sea were advised to avoid that area as much as possible and wait for everything to recover before heading out. Nanfeng and the other 2 had no choice but to sit and wait. A weak earthquake was nothing, but a magnetic anomaly was very troublesome. Who knew if the anomaly would worsen? What if he lost control midway through the flight? Sigh, the city is so good. Why did boss move to a small rundown island? Meanwhile, on the small island, after the communications were cut off, Feng Zhao noticed that all the display screens were flashing with the familiar image. Walking out of the house, Feng Zhao gazed at the sea. Something was changing. It was happening. Chapter 472. The interference lasted for close to 2 hours before disappearing. Feng Zhao received a call from Nanfeng and the others to let them know that they were safe, but he didn't let them come over immediately. After the call, Feng Zhao didn't return to his house immediately. Instead, he sat on a rock by the shore and browsed online reports on the magnetic anomaly. There were no casualties yet, as there was basically no activity in the area with the strongest magnetic anomaly, and the earthquake was relatively weak. Most people just took a look at the news and didn't pay attention. After browsing the news for a while, Feng Zhao heard something underwater approaching at an extremely fast speed. Feng Zhao didn't avoid it and got up to take a look. Splash! A dog rushed ashore from the sea. It was too fast, or perhaps it was too excited, but it didn't stand properly and tumbled for quite a while before coming to a stop. Curly Hair shook off the water and gravel on his body and ran over to Feng Zhao. He seemed rather excited and was wagging his tail in delight. Feng Zhao didn't find any injuries on Curly Hair's body. He rubbed the dog's head. "Are you full?" "Yes, Awo." That Awo was extremely imposing and even sounded a little pleased. "What happened? You caused quite a ruckus this time." Feng Zhao showed Curly Hair a few pieces of news regarding this incident. Curly Hair felt a little guilty when he saw the news, but he relaxed when he realized that nothing serious had happened. "Can you transform now?" Feng Zhao asked. "Yes." Curly Hair was confident again. Feng Zhao didn't let Curly Hair transform here. Although there was no one else on the island, the satellites would probably be watching more closely because of this magnetic anomaly. He had to be more careful. "Let's go to the sea." Feng Zhao changed into a diving suit, put on some equipment, and swam far away. Firstly, it was to prevent being detected by satellites. Secondly, it was to prevent the electronic equipment on the island from being affected. There wasn't enough in stock. Feng Zhao let Curly Hair transform only after he was some distance away from the island and submerged underwater. Sunlight shone through the surface of the sea and into the water. Specks of floating matter could be seen in the water. Fish of various sizes were leisurely swinging their fins. Suddenly, there was a wave, and the school of fish scattered in panic. A huge creature suddenly appeared under the surface of the sea. It had the sharpness and coldness of metal. The sunlight shone through the water and reflected a faint blue light. The light and shadow fluctuated with the flow of the water, adding a mysterious touch. It had 2 ears, 4 limbs, a tail, and sharp teeth. It barely looked like a dog. Feng Zhao wasn't even as long as its leg. Looking at the size of the dog's mouth, swallowing a person was indeed a piece of cake. Feng Zhao looked at this unfamiliar appearance in front of him in amazement. He couldn't imagine how Curly Hair could transform from a carbon-based life form that looked no different from a small pet dog into this new type of life form that seemed to be made entirely out of metal. In that split second just now, he had even heard the high-pitched sound of machinery in overdrive. Feng Zhao waited for its new form to stabilize before turning on the underwater communication device. Very impressive. You can't become smaller? It can't be, right? Curly Hair tilted his head and thought for a bit. Not now, but I don't know in the future. I can control my transformation now. It's just that it can't last very long. He then emphasized, as long as I don't turn into this form in the future, I won't need to eat a lot. From Curly Hair's point of view, he wouldn't get hungry so easily as long as he didn't transform into this big form. This way, he could save on dog food. Curly Hair quickly reverted to his puppy form and started to dog paddle happily beside Feng Zhao. It thought that it had finally solved a big problem and didn't need to worry about it anymore. Feng Zhao still had many questions for Curly Hair, but this wasn't a suitable place to discuss them in detail. After returning to shore and entering the house, Curly Hair told Feng Zhao everything that had happened. There were no more boxes to eat. After gnawing on the submarine, I followed the trench and smelled the scent of food. I dug it up and ate it. Food? What did it look like? Fang Zhao asked. It was a rock. It was white, round, and about the size of a soccer ball. Curly Hair didn't know much else. He hadn't paid much attention to it at the time. He had been too hungry, so he dug it up and ate it. Fang Zhao guessed that Curly Hair might have been talking about a new type of power, or it was very likely that it contained even more energy than grade A power, or the rock in the trench was either an original part of the planet or a rock that had fallen from outer space. Many meteorites had fallen during the period of destruction, and there had been power ores among them. Fang Zhao was inclined to believe that it had fallen from outer space. However, now that the rock had been swallowed by Curly Hair, it was indeed very difficult to confirm its origin. All he had to do was confirm that the rock was beneficial to Curly Hair. Did you discover any more of that rock in the trench? Fang Zhao asked. No more. There's only one piece. Curly Hair still felt that it was a pity. If there were more of these rocks, he wouldn't need to spend money on dog food. He could switch between two forms every day. It was a pity that there weren't many things that could fill him up in one bite. Fang Zhao didn't harp on this. Instead, he asked about the cause of the magnetic anomaly and the earthquake. Curly Hair cautiously glanced at Fang Zhao, lowered his head, and explained, I ate too much and couldn't hold it in. After gnawing on the submarine's power cabin and swallowing a rock that was suspected to be a high-grade power, or Curly Hair suddenly realized that he was about to transform again. Thus, he found a place to hide and quietly wait for this period to pass. I also didn't think that I would be able to complete my transformation this time. Back then, I checked the surroundings. There wasn't anyone around, and there weren't many fish in the trench. I even tried to control it. I didn't want to make a ruckus. Curly Hair's eyes lit up as he thought of something. He wagged his tail and asked Fang Zhao for credit. After my transformation period passed, I discovered 3 submersibles not far away. There were people inside, and all of them still had vital signs. I sent them to the nearest naval vessel. I secretly pushed the submersibles over and wasn't discovered. At this moment, the account Fang Zhao followed received a new notification. Fang Zhao opened it and took a look. It said that Yinzhou's naval patrol fleet had discovered 3 submersibles and had confirmed the identities of all the people inside. They were all members of the T organization. The positioning information on the submersibles indicated the epicenter of the earthquake and the magnetic anomaly. The public also suspected that the anomaly at sea was caused by the T organization. One could imagine how much the T organization was being scolded. Fang Zhao had a complicated expression as he looked at Curly Hair, who was squatting there and scratching himself with his hind legs. After a while, Fang Zhao said, You handled this matter very well. Curly Hair immediately perked up. He wagged his tail and looked at Fang Zhao with hope in his eyes. Then can I get a game console? Sure. Actually, there were some things that Fang Zhao had prepared in advance. Fang Zhao took out 2 boxes from the warehouse. The first box contained a gaming helmet. Curly Hair's eyes went wide when he saw the brand new gaming helmet that Fang Zhao took out. A real gaming helmet. It wasn't a deceivingly good-looking learning machine. Fang Zhao opened the second box. It was smaller than the first. Inside was a personal terminal that looked like a pocket watch with a puppy print on it. Curly Hair's attention shifted from the gaming console to this brand new personal terminal. This was the terminal that he had wanted for so long. Curly Hair licked his nose and wagged his tail as he came over. Which one do you want? You can only choose one, Fang Zhao said. Curly Hair's gaze darted between the gaming helmet and the personal terminal with great difficulty. He whimpered softly as if he had difficulty choosing. Actually, there is another problem, Fang Zhao said. Curly Hair's innocent and limpid eyes widened as he looked at Fang Zhao pitifully. No matter which one it is, you won't be able to use it for long, Fang Zhao said. Impossible. Curly Hair guarded his belongings very strictly. Even if it was a learning machine that he wanted to avoid, he would put it away in a bookshelf and let Fang Zhao keep it for him. Fang Zhao started to lay out the evidence. He started from the time when Curly Hair had dismantled the building, all the way to the data collected from the recent magnetic anomaly. Every time you transform, it interferes with the electronic equipment. In serious cases, it will be scrapped. Curly Hair didn't say anything in the face of the evidence. However, Fang Zhao continued, I see that you have improved greatly during this period. You were unable to control your body's transformation at the start, but now you can control your entire body's transformation. I believe that you will be able to transform without affecting electronic equipment very soon. Curly Hair regained his confidence after hearing Fang Zhao's words. Fang Zhao gave him time to make a choice. The prerequisite was that he could control the effects of his transformation on electronic equipment. Curly Hair quickly entered a new phase of training. A dog also needed a goal. Only with a goal would there be motivation and direction. Otherwise, Curly Hair would only think about what to eat today, what to eat tomorrow, and what to eat in the future. After eating, he would sleep, and when he woke up, he would think about playing games. Fang Zhao tidied up the storage to barely accommodate Curly Hair's transformation. Even if Curly Hair accidentally transformed, it wouldn't be to the extent of bursting the house. Curly Hair practiced swallowing canned dog food, fruits, bones, and so on every day. Every time he swallowed one, he would do his best to control and reduce the interference. Now that his control over his body's transformation had increased, only his head transformed. The interference released wasn't as great as before, and it wouldn't directly destroy electronic equipment nearby. Fang Zhao placed the mirror back into the storage. Curly Hair would look at himself in the mirror from time to time to see his new form. Only by looking in the mirror would he know what he looked like. After settling Curly Hair's matters, Fang Zhao contacted Nanfeng and the other two to replenish their supplies. Although there were many fish in the sea, and there might even be power ores at the bottom of the sea, he still needed to prepare more supplies. Nanfeng and the other two were puzzled when they received Fang Zhao's orders. This time, Fang Zhao wanted to replenish too many things. The canned dog food was for Curly Hair to eat. However, there was still so much fruit, meat, and compressed biscuits. Would Fang Zhao be able to finish them all when he was the only one on the island? Nanfeng looked at the shopping list and said to Yin Biao and Zuiyu, I suspect that boss is secretly rearing a shark or some other fish. Oh, from the looks of it, there might be more than one. Chapter 473. Double Tomorrow. Future Heavenly King Tomorrow. Currently in the middle of typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 474. The boss had secrets, but Nanfeng and the other two didn't dare to dig deeper. They didn't want to lose their jobs. When Nanfeng and the others delivered the supplies, Curly Hair wasn't training in the warehouse. Instead, he was lying on the sofa watching television. After checking the goods, Nanfeng turned around and chuckled. Oh, little Curly Hair is watching television again? After finishing his work, Nanfeng stretched his body and ran over to the sofa to watch television with Curly Hair. It was a program about dogs, and the dog owner was proudly showing off his dog. There are dogs. One look, and you can tell he's from Muzhou, Nanfeng commented as he drank his water. Hey, look at the shepherd dog inside. It even knows how to bring gifts for its owner. Look at how happy the dog owner is. Little Curly Hair, let me tell you, a good dog is one that knows how to fetch a bone for its owner. When are you going to fetch one for your owner? Your master must be very happy. Nanfeng had said it in passing. He knew that Curly Hair's IQ was like that of a child and could understand some simple words and commands. Thus, he had only teased Curly Hair a little and didn't take it to heart. On the other hand, Curly Hair's ears twitched. He glanced at Nanfeng and then at the program on the television before sprawling on the sofa, deep in thought. Boss, the goods have all been loaded. The electronic list has been sent to you. Take a look, Zuiyu said. Thank you for your hard work. Should we send a housekeeping robot next time? I can even chat with you if I sweep the floor and cook, Yin Biao suggested. Not at the moment. Fang Zhao shook his head. Before Curly Hair could completely control his interference ability, it was best not to place too many electronic devices. After a while, Nanfeng and the other two left. Curly Hair, who was lying on the sofa, immediately jumped up and shouted to Fang Zhao, I'm going out for a while. A long trip? Fang Zhao asked. Not far. just swimming near the island. Curly Hair's eyes darted left and right, but he didn't look straight at Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao's eyebrows twitched. He knew that the dog was up to no good, but he still said, "Go. Woof. I'll be back soon." With that, Curly Hair scampered off. Feng Zhao wanted to go over and see what the dog was up to, but he received a call. It was Imo Lang's. After graduating from Huangart's advanced course, Feng Zhao and Imo Lang had been in constant contact. Feng Zhao returned to the house to answer the call. The wind outside was a little strong, and there was too much noise. Imo Lang first asked if Feng Zhao had encountered any trouble and if he had been affected by the magnetic anomaly. He urged Feng Zhao to hire more people. Yinzhou's navy had just captured a few terrorists at sea, and Imo Lang was worried about Feng Zhao's safety. Of course, Imo Lang had called because he was worried about Feng Zhao's safety after watching the news. Another reason was to tell Feng Zhao an important piece of news. There's a very important performance, and the invited musicians are all very famous. The organizer has also taken a fancy to you. Do you want to go? Hearing Imo Lang's words, Feng Zhao recalled that during the graduation concert, one of the judges had mentioned that there would be a very important performance, the kind that could not be made public. Who are the organizers? Feng Zhao asked. The military. The venue is still a little far. Go. Imo Lang smiled. He was very satisfied with Feng Zhao's reply. That sort of performance will do you good. Someone will contact you within a week. You can ask him directly if you have any questions. You still have close to a month's time to settle things on this planet. All right, 1 month. That should be enough. From what Imo Lang said, the venue of the performance would be on another planet. As for which planet, Feng Zhao still didn't know. However, he was sure that if he went to participate in the performance, he wouldn't be away for 3 to 5 days. He couldn't be at ease if Curly Hair didn't personally keep an eye on him, but bringing Curly Hair to the performance was also risky. He could only wait and see Curly Hair's performance over the next period of time. If Curly Hair could control himself well enough not to interfere with the electronic equipment, Feng Zhao would bring Curly Hair to the performance. Of course, the premise was that the organizer allowed him to bring a dog. Even if he couldn't bring a dog, as long as Curly Hair could control his abilities well, he wouldn't be easily exposed. With the stimulation of the gaming helmet and personal terminal, Curly Hair's improvements over the past few days were very obvious. He had already reduced the range of his interference to within the warehouse. Outside the warehouse, electronic equipment received very little or no interference. After chatting with Imo Lang for a while, Feng Zhao looked at the time. His call with Imo Lang had lasted more than half an hour. Curly Hair still hadn't returned. Curly Hair? Feng Zhao walked out of the house and called a few times. There was no response. Feng Zhao listened carefully. Sounds came from the seabed near the island, like someone was digging a hole. Feng Zhao didn't call for Curly Hair anymore. He opened up an ebook and sat on the shore to read. What he was reading was a legendary work praised to the heavens by the people of Muzhou, Sumu on dogs. It was written by an old comrade he had known during the period of destruction. As the leader of the Muzhou battlefield, Sumu's influence wasn't small. His opinions and stories had been collected by the people of Muzhou and compiled into a book. The book, Sumu on Dogs, was about Sumu talking about how to raise a dog. Of course, only a portion of it was what Sumu had said. The rest was analyzed and expanded by later generations. The people of Muzhou loved dogs so much because of the influence of their Muzhou ancestors. However, Sumu was indeed the publicly acknowledged #1 dog raiser during the period of destruction. The things he said in the book were rather reasonable. Feng Zhao felt that he still had to learn more from this old comrade who had rich experience raising dogs. Even if Curly Hair became a mechanical dog, he would still be a dog. His core wouldn't change. As he was reading, Feng Zhao heard the sound of Curly Hair coming ashore. Curly Hair walked out of the seawater, not bothering to shake off the water on his body. He held a bone that was even bigger than his head in his mouth as he jogged over. Feng Zhao's eyelids twitched when he saw that bone. Curly Hair was especially careful when he brought it over, probably because he was afraid of biting the bone. He walked over with a posture similar to a sea lion carrying a ball. He slowed down and walked over with the bone that was 5 or 6 times bigger than himself. Curly Hair only put down the broken bone when he reached Feng Zhao. There were teeth marks on the bone, and there were even cracks on it. For a dog that could even easily gnaw through a submarine, this was already the result of Curly Hair's best control. After putting down the bone, Curly Hair felt much more relaxed. He shook his fur and shook off the seawater on his body. This bone is too soft. It breaks with one touch. It's even harder than growing in a rock. The last time I was digging at the bottom of the sea, I saw some bones in the rocks, but they weren't tasty and couldn't fill my stomach. But they're big enough. Especially big. Curly Hair wagged his tail as he looked at Feng Zhao, as though he was begging for praise. The bone that he brought back was much bigger than the bones that Muzhou dogs brought back on TV. How impressive! Feng Zhao rubbed Curly Hair's head and picked up the broken bone in front of him. This bone wasn't a whole one. It had been cut off by Curly Hair, and there were still some crystalline granules on the surface. A portion of the bone was still attached to the rock. Curly Hair didn't know how to be meticulous when digging for bones. Some veins could be seen on the bone. Fossil. The fossil of a huge beast that had lived tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of years ago. The disasters of the period of destruction and the century-long war had destroyed too many things. Survival was the #1 priority, and everything else was left behind. Anything could become a sacrifice in that century-long war for survival. After the period of destruction ended, people of the new era gradually started to get interested in those prehistoric beasts. They tried to excavate them again, but most of the time, they could only find some fragments. Even a complete skeleton could become a museum treasure, enough for them to brag about for many years. Chapter 475. Curly Hair didn't really understand what Feng Zhao meant. He really felt that the bone wasn't tasty at all and didn't fight hunger at all. However, he could tell that Feng Zhao liked this gift a lot. Curly Hair puffed out his chest and waited for Feng Zhao to continue praising him. Then, he heard Feng Zhao say, "Curly Hair, if you can control your transformation so that it doesn't affect any electronic equipment within a meter of you within a week, I can give you the personal terminal and gaming helmet." Curly Hair was stunned by this pleasant surprise. Then, he jumped up and wagged his tail vigorously to confirm with Feng Zhao. "Really? MMHM. Let's start the countdown now." Curly Hair ran to the warehouse to practice. Feng Zhao put away the fossil bone Curly Hair had brought back, changed into his diving suit, and entered the sea to where Curly Hair was digging. The seawater near the island wasn't too deep. There were many traces of dog digging. Ever since he had moved here, Curly Hair would often dig holes near the island for fun. The hole Curly Hair had dug was very small. Only Curly Hair could fit in. Feng Zhao didn't use any tools to dig. Instead, he took out a small energy transmitter. Without a professional detector, Feng Zhao could only rely on his hearing to determine the general situation within the rock stratum. Carefully listening to the changes in the rock stratum, Feng Zhao's brain was like a tomography device, sketching out the general situation within the rock stratum. There were many disturbances within the rock stratum, but Feng Zhao already had a preliminary understanding of them. After returning to shore, Feng Zhao marked a few spots on the ground and brought along digging tools to start digging. Of course, he didn't intend to rely on himself and his limited tools to dig out the fossil of the gigantic beast that had been buried for who knew how many years. He just wanted to do a few things first to divert attention and cover up any abnormal traces of Curly Hair's excavation process. Feng Zhao spent the next few days doing this. Fortunately, the huge fossil buried underground was large enough. A portion of it could be directly excavated on the island, just that the excavation was a little deep. On Curly Hair's end, with the dual stimulation of the gaming console and personal terminal, his progress was simply godly. In less than a week, he had reduced the interference range to within a meter in 5 days. Then, he impatiently ran to Feng Zhao to ask for a reward. "Gaming console. Personal terminal. How long have I waited?" It was great that he didn't have to choose between the two. Feng Zhao didn't lie to Curly Hair. After inspecting and confirming that Curly Hair met the requirements, he gave Curly Hair the gaming helmet and personal terminal. He even specially changed the pocket watch-like terminal into a dog collar and placed it around Curly Hair's neck. You can use these two normally, but don't get too close to them when you're transforming. Remember to remove the terminal before you transform. Feng Zhao placed the terminal on Curly Hair's collar. Ayo! Curly Hair responded. Even if Feng Zhao didn't say it, it would still pay attention. This was a reward that it had not been easy to obtain. This was the first game console and terminal in a dog's life. How could he not protect it well? After putting on this special collar, Curly Hair even ran to the mirror in the warehouse and looked at himself for close to 2 hours. It was familiar with the gaming helmet. This was the first time it had come into contact with the terminal, but the controls were very simple. It memorized the electronic instruction manual that Feng Zhao had written for it. In the future, it wouldn't have to run over to Feng Zhao to look for him. It would be able to speak directly through the terminal. When Curly Hair ran to the warehouse to look at himself in the mirror, Feng Zhao read through the terminal usage instructions for children again and deleted it. However, this time, Curly Hair had used only 5 days to reduce the interference range to within a meter. This had indeed exceeded Feng Zhao's expectations. It seemed like Curly Hair's control over his abilities was getting better and better. He had to raise his standards in the future. After settling Curly Hair's matters, Feng Zhao contacted Nanfeng and the other two and opened up a voice chat. Nanfeng and the other two didn't dare delay when they received Feng Zhao's group chat notification. They immediately put down whatever they were doing and went online to await their boss's orders. The three of them guessed that their boss would usually contact them once a week. Only 5 days had passed. Had he used up all the goods on the island? That shouldn't be the case. The last time they shipped so much, it was enough for him to eat and drink for a month. Did something happen? But looking at their boss, he didn't seem to be in a hurry. Or was he finally going to reveal his secrets to them? For example, rearing a school of sharks on the island? The three suppressed the surging suspicions in their hearts and waited for Feng Zhao to speak. Curly Hair dug out a bone. Feng Zhao said. Nanfeng said excitedly, "Our little Curls even knows how to bring a bone home." Zuiyu directly ignored Nanfeng's retarded manner. "Boss, is it a human bone or a beast bone?" Nanfeng, who had just woken up from his brainlessness, straightened his face. "Yes, did something happen?" According to the island purchase contract, this island wasn't a savage island. Ever since the previous island owner had bought it, there hadn't been any accidental deaths. After all, the previous island owner hadn't really lived here. Apart from simple remodeling and construction, he hadn't buried anything here. Could it be that there was some malicious incident that even the previous island owner didn't know about? If it was just an ordinary bird or beast bone, he wouldn't have contacted them. The three of them saw that Feng Zhao didn't seem to be alarmed and waited patiently for Feng Zhao to continue. Feng Zhao continued unhurriedly. Preliminary analysis shows that it is a fossil bone belonging to some kind of huge beast from tens of millions of years ago, or perhaps even 100 million years ago. The three of them. Gasps could be heard. DDD fossil? Zuiyu's lips were trembling. Yin Biao didn't know much about fossils, but he was still rather calm. Calm my ass. Is it a dinosaur? One of those legendary prehistoric beasts. As a dinosaur fanatic, Yin Biao couldn't wait to fly over. When he was young, he loved listening to dinosaur stories. He had even fantasized about becoming a dinosaur hunter. It might not necessarily be a dinosaur. It could also be some kind of marine reptile, Feng Zhao said. To me, they are all dinosaurs. Yin Biao didn't care what the definition of a dinosaur was. Land or sea, in his eyes, all creatures from that period were dinosaurs. Yin Biao even asked Feng Zhao to send a few more photos of the fossil bone. This bone is really big. It must be a big guy buried underground. Boss, you can't dig it up alone. I'll help you now. Nanfeng didn't utter a word, but there were some small movements. After a while, when Zuiyu and Yin Biao calmed down a little, they heard Nanfeng speak. Boss, I just checked the relevant laws and consulted a few authoritative lawyers. In the 500 years of the new era, fossils have already become commodities that can be traded. Anything excavated from a private island belongs to the owner. Boss, you're rich. Nanfeng's voice cracked in the second half of his sentence. It was clear how excited he was. Private islands had all been scouted long ago. However, the early scouters were mainly to check for power ores, viruses from the period of destruction, and other dangerous objects. Feng Zhao's island was the same. There was no need to think about power ores. If there were, they would have been excavated long ago. Even the island might not have been able to be traded. As a result, islands without power ores became commodities for merchants to buy and sell, including items on the island. Fossils were a big deal in the new era's archaeology, collection, paleontology, and other circles. After so many years, if not for the fact that the number of fossils excavated was too small, it wouldn't have been neglected. Actually, there were countless fossils of ancient organisms that had passed through the fog of hundreds of millions of years of history, such as certain insects and plants. Even after the period of destruction, some could still be excavated. However, people still had a soft spot for dinosaurs. It was just that dinosaur fossils were too few. Who would have thought that such a remote island would actually hide fossils of ancient organisms from tens of millions of years ago? Fossils. They really were fossils. Unlike Nanfeng and the other two who were excited, Feng Zhao calmly arranged matters related to the excavation of fossils. He still needed to find a professional team to excavate fossils. As a result, Feng Zhao took a photo of the excavated fossil and shot a video of the excavation site. He posted it on his social media platform and expressed his sincerity in finding a professional team to collaborate with. After posting it, Feng Zhao's personal terminal didn't stop ringing. That bunch of research bigwigs would always have a way to get his number. Various major media outlets also called to inquire. That day, many people were shocked by the real-time news headlines. Fossils? Were they the fossils of the prehistoric overlords from tens of millions of years ago that were mentioned in the textbooks back then? Are you serious? Not hype? Look at these bones that have already been excavated. They are quite big. The rest have yet to be excavated. It's definitely a big fella. Feng Zhao again? His way of dominating the headlines is really out of the ordinary. Was it his dog that dug it up? I suspect that the earthy bone that my dog gave me yesterday is also a fossil, but I threw the bone into the garbage disposal. I feel like I've lost a few 100 million. Feng Zhao already had a lot of traffic. Plus, dinosaur fossils were a major event with special significance in the new era. This time, the entire world knew. On a certain island that Feng Zhao had recently purchased, his dog, yes, the dog named Curly Hair that was worth close to 300 million, had excavated the bones of a dinosaur from tens of millions of years ago. The amount of information in this piece of news was too great. In a short period of time, it had stirred up traffic in several circles. At the same time, even more professional excavation teams were flying toward Feng Zhao's island. Chapter 476. Feng Zhao's discovery of dinosaur fossils on the island caused many island owners who had originally intended to sell their islands to hurriedly pull down their signs and contact professional exploration teams to investigate their own islands and the seabed near them. No, they had to contact 3 different teams to check 3 times before they could be at ease. Quick, quick, quick. Check if there are any fossils buried on my island. In a short period of time, many fossil exploration teams that had been neglected and were on the verge of disbanding came back to life. It was a pity that the senior research teams were all focused on Feng Zhao's island. They didn't know if there were fossils on other islands, but Feng Zhao's island definitely had fossils, and it was a big one. As a result, anxious island owners could only look for geological survey teams or other non-scientific research teams. There were also some teams that were already on their way to Feng Zhao's small island that decided to change their route at the last minute for the sake of the high rewards. They decided to check out their employer's island first. Perhaps they would also detect fossils? The most depressed person was the previous island owner who had sold his island to Feng Zhao. He was well aware of the many shortcomings of his island. It was remote and difficult to manage. Remodeling it would definitely cost a lot, and based on market conditions, it would be impossible to quickly commercialize it. He had been so happy when he had sold it, but he had thrown out a problem. But how long had it been since he had sold it? Had it been half a month? The previous island owner nearly spat out a mouthful of blood when he saw the news. He was filled with regret and hatred. His depressed face was contorted. However, business transactions were like this. It was hard to say who was the winner. Yesterday, he had thought he was the big winner. Today, he realized he had lost all face. Look at how many people online were laughing at the person who had sold his island to Feng Zhao. The previous island owner's heart bled at the thought of the fossils buried under the island. How regretful. He should have done a thorough survey of the island back then. Feng Zhao. Treacherous. Too treacherous. He wouldn't believe it if he said he hadn't received the news beforehand. He must have known that there were dinosaur fossils under the island and was in a hurry to buy it. Indeed, Feng Zhao's every move had a purpose. Every move was worth studying. You simply couldn't guess what his next step would be. Because Feng Zhao's news had stirred up too many fields, people from all over the world were discussing it. Even Imo Lang, who didn't pay much attention to the news, knew about it. Imo Lang had originally thought that Feng Zhao would be on that remote island, preparing for the performance. He had never expected that just a few days later, another storm would arise. Still worried, Imo Lang hurriedly gave Feng Zhao a call and told him not to forget about his upcoming performance because of the fossil. That was a very important matter that concerned his future. Of course, Feng Zhao had not forgotten about that important performance. Other than dealing with the fossil issue, he had spent the rest of his time preparing for the performance. After placating the anxious Imo Lang and ending the call, Feng Zhao saw Curly Hair walking over. Curly Hair ran in front of Feng Zhao and lifted his chin as though he was looking at the sky. "The new collar looks good on you." "It looks good," Feng Zhao said. Curly Hair called out happily and said, "I will find another place to dig for bones next time." "You like digging bones?" Feng Zhao asked. "I like it," Curly Hair answered without hesitation. There was a game console to play when digging bones. Look at how it managed to obtain a game console and a terminal just by digging out half a bone. What a great thing. Feng Zhao thought of something and nodded. All right. He had changed his mind. He had originally intended to use the fossil to exchange for dog food, but now that Curly Hair could control his own transformation and forage for food in the ocean, he could afford to keep Curly Hair as long as he didn't transform for too long. Furthermore, he reckoned that he could earn some dog food money from this fossil incident. There was no need to rush to sell the fossil. In the future, if Curly Hair came back with any other fossil bones or other items, he would help Curly Hair keep them well. Didn't his old comrade Su Mu's book say, "Treat every gift they give you seriously"? Feng Zhao felt that these words made sense. Or, he could just set up a private collection hall and store all the items Curly Hair picked up. The more Feng Zhao thought about it, the more he felt that this was a good idea. Digging bones was better than playing games at home all day. Feng Zhao had already told Curly Hair about the many strangers coming to the island. Curly Hair wasn't worried. He could already control his interference and wouldn't suddenly transform to scare people. He wasn't worried about being exposed no matter how many people came. However, with even more outsiders coming to his territory, Curly Hair decided to patrol his territory, both above and below the water. "Is this personal terminal waterproof?" Curly Hair asked worriedly. "It's 200 meters waterproof. It's basically fine to dive no deeper than 200 meters, Feng Zhao replied. "Only 200 meters? Curly Hair decided to be more careful and not wear the personal terminal when patrolling the water. Curly Hair looked over when he heard the sound of a flying transport landing. Then, he scampered over. It was Nanfeng and the other two. Nanfeng and the other two had rushed over immediately after receiving Feng Zhao's call. Before they even landed, they discovered that the southeast part of the island was already riddled with holes. But it didn't matter. It was fossil digging. They wouldn't feel the pinch even if they dug it all out. Nanfeng saw Curly Hair run over to them the moment they got off the flying transport. Curly Hair raised his head to show them the new personal terminal on his neck. Nanfeng might have noticed it at any other time, but his mind was filled with dinosaur fossils and didn't notice Curly Hair's subtle emotions. Nanfeng was now looking at Curly Hair as though he was a golden chicken that had laid golden eggs. "Look at our little curls," He knows he has done something great and is sticking out his chest. Curly Hair did a good job, Nanfeng said excitedly. Curly Hair stared at him with his dark dog eyes. Nanfeng continued, your owner is going to strike it rich this time. That's a dinosaur, and a really big one at that. Tens of millions of years ago, even 10 of a small dog like you wouldn't be enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Curly Hair glanced at them again before turning around and leaving. Nanfeng couldn't care less now. He first understood the situation from Feng Zhao before personally digging up 2 fossil bones with Yin Biao and Zhuayu. He excitedly turned on his video camera and took a bunch of photos, showing off on his social media and WeChat moments. Because other people were coming over soon, the 3 of them didn't have much leisure time. After digging up the fossils, taking photos and showing off, they went about their own business. What was buried under Feng Zhao's island was very likely the first complete fossil of a prehistoric beast over 20 meters in the past 500 years of the new era. The attraction was too strong, and teams from all over arrived quickly. However, the island was privately owned, and the area surrounding the island was considered private territory. Trespassing without the permission of the island owner was permitted, and Feng Zhao could open fire directly. Nanfeng was in charge of communicating with these teams. Feng Zhao also hired a group of people to maintain order on the island and its surroundings. The Yinzhou Navy also expressed that they would send a team over to help. There were too many people coming, and they were all from all over the world. The Yinzhou Navy had no choice but to take this seriously. Even if it wasn't Feng Zhao this time, they would still negotiate with the island owner. Fortunately, Feng Zhao was very cooperative. After Feng Zhao had sent out the news-seeking partners, professional research teams from all over the continent had taken the initiative to participate in this excavation operation. They didn't need to pay anything as long as Feng Zhao allowed them to participate. Some people had even started fighting over a spot. Besides these teams, the various media outlets didn't lag behind. Yinzhou Television had even arranged for an interview with Feng Zhao. The originally deserted island had become extraordinarily lively. Some simple temporary housing had been set up. Even the seas around the island were filled with ships of all sizes, and the number was still increasing. Since they couldn't land on the island, they would stay on the ships. People who wanted to join in on the action also rented ships. As long as they didn't enter the waters of the private island, it wouldn't be considered trespassing. There were many private flying transports in the air that didn't dare enter the private area without permission. They could only circle around the vicinity with people observing with binoculars. There were also people doing live webcasts. This excavation operation was very commemorative, and the competition between the various teams was intense. Feng Zhao chose 12 teams from all 12 continents. Among them, the majority were research teams. The various teams weren't too happy about such a big project being split, but they understood Feng Zhao's intention. If anyone was unhappy, they could leave. Many private teams that weren't allowed to enter the island were eyeing them like tigers watching their prey. They were waiting for the teams to leave so their people could squeeze in. Thus, even if they weren't willing to share with others, the 12 teams still agreed. No one was willing to give up this opportunity. Now, they could only cooperate. Fortunately, Feng Zhao didn't criticize them. He even said that he would be at ease leaving the professional matters to the professionals. This time, Feng Zhao also met members of the world's top collector family, the Brian family. The other party had taken the initiative to look for him. Feng Zhao had some impression of the Brian family. This family had made great contributions to the Huangzhou battlefield during the period of destruction. Now, they owned the largest private museum in Huangzhou, the Brian Museum. The Brian Museum owned the world's only Tyrannosaurus skull and a complete velociraptor fossil. In addition to their precious collections, the Brian family was most famous for their people. Regardless of gender, the members of the Brian family were extremely good-looking. However, anyone who paid attention to the Brian family knew that this was a family that viewed looks as dirt. Not long ago, there had been a member of the Brian family who had nearly turned into a barbarian while searching for insect amber from 100 million years ago. The leader of the Brian family this time was also the curator of the Brian Museum. He knew that it wasn't easy for private teams to participate alone, so he had teamed up with Huangzhou Museum to form an excavation team to cooperate with Feng Zhao. He had come to look for Fang Zhao in hopes that after the dinosaurs were excavated, they could rent them for 2 months every year. The Bryan Museum and Huangzhou Museum would display them for a month each. Of course, it would be great if they could buy it directly. They didn't mind paying more, but Fang Zhao had clearly indicated that he wasn't selling. Thus, they could only settle for the next best thing. If they couldn't buy it, they would rent it. Fang Zhao didn't want to talk about this now. We'll talk after we excavate it. He had to see the performance of these teams before making a decision. Different museums had different management capabilities and the importance they placed on their collections. Fang Zhao didn't want the excavated dinosaurs to be destroyed by those careless museums. Curator Brian didn't expect Fang Zhao to agree immediately. He only hoped that after the fossils were excavated, Fang Zhao would consider them first if he was looking for partners. They had come with the greatest sincerity. This time, the Brian family had sent 5 people with the curator. Regardless of gender, they had personally participated in most of the excavation work. Sweat splattered everywhere, dust flew everywhere, and their faces were covered in mud. All that could be seen were pairs of blazing eyes. They simply didn't care about the cameras following them. They didn't even care about appearing in front of the global audience. After all, their family members were already famous for their style of doing things. What was their face? What was important was the fossils. With so many professional teams dividing up the work, the efficiency of their work was much higher. While they were busy excavating the fossils, Fang Zhao had long been blocked by reporters. A reporter from Yinzhou Television, who had the geographical advantage, was the first to interview Fang Zhao. How did you discover the fossils in the first place? Was it really discovered by your dog? The reporter asked with a smile as he glanced at the dog crouching beside Fang Zhao. Yes, the first bone was dug out by him. The camera focused on Curly Hair, who was crouching beside Fang Zhao. Curly Hair raised his head slightly, revealing the collar on his neck and the terminal with the pattern of a puppy. He didn't let a single strand of dog hair cover him. After recording the dog for a while, the camera turned back to Fang Zhao. The reporter asked a few questions that the public was curious about. For example, how did Curly Hair discover the fossils underground? Fang Zhao replied, when I just bought the island was undergoing construction. Because of the construction, the rock layer underneath was exposed, but no one noticed. It was Curly Hair who dug out that bone. Nanfeng and the others who were paying attention to the interview. Boss is even pushing this to Curly Hair just to weaken the ability of his ears? Others might not know, but how could they not know? What kind of large-scale construction was this island? As for the reporter's question about why Fang Zhao had bought this island, Fang Zhao only said that he wanted to find a quiet place where he wouldn't be disturbed. Discovering the fossils was really luck. Luck? Most people didn't believe it. Haha, bullshit luck. Does he still need to cover up his ears now? No matter how the reporter cursed in his heart, he still had a "so that's how it is" expression on his face. He followed the topic and praised Curly Hair, who was obediently crouching beside Fang Zhao. Curly Hair was especially pleased and excited from everyone's praise. After the interview ended, he ran around patrolling the area and waited for the interview to be broadcast before sitting in front of the television. As an official television station in the Yinzhou region, the news was rather serious. The broadcast footage of the interview was Fang Zhao's original words. There were no distortions or blurring of any editing. Curly Hair also had a few seconds of footage. In an environment where even small news channels were broadcast in high definition, the official television station's footage was enough for people to see this dog clearly. The terminal on the dog's collar was probably covered up by mosaic to avoid suspicions that it was advertising. Curly Hair, who was sitting in front of the television, Chapter 477. Curly Hair, who hadn't been able to show off his new collar, suffered a huge blow. Fang Zhao made a trip to the excavation team. When he returned, he saw Nanfeng anxiously talking to Curly Hair about something. However, Curly Hair just walked slowly with his head hung low. Nanfeng hurriedly told Fang Zhao about Curly Hair's abnormality. Boss, Did Curly Hair eat something bad? Or was it because there were too many strangers on the island and they were not used to it? Is he sick? He was fine before. Fang Zhao took the leash and indicated to Nanfeng that he would handle this matter. As he led Curly Hair back to the house, Fang Zhao could roughly guess why Curly Hair was like this. Curly Hair, I have a mission for you, Fang Zhao said. Since he had something to do, he didn't have the mood to think about anything else. Curly Hair looked up at Fang Zhao. There's a new warehouse on the southeast side of the island. All the bones and fossils are stored there. Help me guard it, and don't let anyone steal it. The prehistoric creature buried under the island was too big. In order to minimize the damage to the fossils, it was quite difficult to excavate. Although there were 12 teams in charge, it would take more than 1 or 2 days to excavate. Fang Zhao had built a temporary warehouse on the southeast side of the island. Besides storing the fossils, the excavation team's tools and resources were also stored there. There was also a temporary lounge inside. Although a security system had been installed, Fang Zhao believed in Curly Hair's abilities and wanted to divert Curly Hair's attention. Recently, there had been too many people on the island. When Curly Hair moved around in other parts of the island, he had to be leashed and his movements were limited. Now, Fang Zhao simply let it roam freely in the large warehouse. It was a little small, but there was no need for a leash. If your performance is good, I will bring you to another planet to play, Fang Zhao said. Curly Hair's eyes lit up, and he immediately stood up. It knew that Fang Zhao would be leaving soon to participate in a performance, and it might not be able to tag along. Now that Fang Zhao had said this, it was naturally happy. Thus, Nanfeng had just received a call and was on his way back when he saw Curly Hair rushing into the warehouse energetically. This is... Nanfeng looked at Fang Zhao, puzzled. Guard the warehouse door. Fang Zhao informed the staff at the warehouse and hung a sign next to the precautions posted on the door. Danger. No entry for non-staff. The workers going in and out of the warehouse stared at the 3 exclamation marks on the warning sign in a daze. Danger? What danger? Is there a need for such a strong tone? They had been working here for 2 days. Why hadn't they noticed any danger in the warehouse? It was just that there was an extra dog. The island master's dog won't eat the bones, right? Someone was worried. It won't be able to bite it if it's on the table. Since Fang Zhao chose to let it in, he will take responsibility if anything happens. Even though the warehouse staff were very reluctant to see a pet dog in a place like this, who asked Fang Zhao to be the island owner. Fine, you are the island master. You can be willful. Meanwhile, Curly Hair, who had already entered the warehouse, also entered work mode. In order to produce results for Fang Zhao to bring it to another planet, it was very serious about inspecting the warehouse. He walked around the warehouse, checking every nook and cranny, not even letting go of a bug. After patrolling, Curly Hair lay at the entrance of the warehouse and watched the workers enter and leave. He didn't bark or run around recklessly and became a watchdog. At this time, a yacht was parked some distance away from the island, and there were many other ships nearby that were watching the show. This one was inconspicuous. It has already successfully infiltrated the island. Its disguise is very good. Bionic technology nowadays is really awesome. It wasn't in vain that we spent so much money to buy it from the black market. The seller didn't cheat me. Look at the manual. It says that it is the latest bionic technology that can avoid most civilian security systems. It is useful, but it is expensive. We can't even be sure of its effective period. Most of our assets have been invested in it. Furthermore, it is small and can only carry things up to 20 kilograms. I'm not greedy. I just want a small bone. With such a huge skeleton, missing 1 or 2 small bones definitely won't be noticed. I'm not greedy either. I'll be satisfied with just 1 bone. Let's split the money. There are people on night watch in the warehouse. We have to be more careful. Don't worry. I have installed a dissolving anesthetic needle. It's enough to knock out an elephant, the kind that won't even be able to find the needle. Fang Zhao is still too impatient. He publicized the fossil as soon as he dug it up and wasn't prepared. On this kind of isolated island surrounded by the sea, there aren't enough security personnel for so many people. Furthermore, Fang Zhao has too much faith in so-called intelligent security systems. He is still too young and doesn't know how fast electronic equipment can be upgraded. Wait until nightfall before taking action. Yeah, nightfall is more convenient. The sun set and the night deepened. After a busy day, the excavation team returned to their own residences. After a simple tidy-up, they went to bed. On the first day, they had been too excited to sleep. On the second day, they had slept late. On the third day, the workload during the day wasn't that heavy, but it was especially taxing. If they weren't careful, they could easily damage the fossil. For such a big matter, they didn't feel at ease leaving the excavation to intelligent machines. They all chose to do it themselves. Therefore, when night came, they made good use of the time to conserve their energy. Based on their current progress, in another 2 days, the giant beast buried under the island would be completely unearthed. They would soon be able to see the skeleton of this prehistoric giant beast that had been buried for tens of millions of years. The excavation team entered dreamland with smiles on their faces. They didn't know that in the darkness, there were many restless shadows. At night, the island was much quieter. Nocturnal insects came out one after another. A small reptile crawled out from the underbrush and headed toward the warehouse. On the sea outside the island, inside a certain search boat, a few people were staring at the surveillance screen. The image was taken from the reptile's point of view. It had already neared the warehouse and was about to enter through a crack in the window. The few people stared without blinking. Seeing that it had already entered the warehouse, they didn't even have time to rejoice when they heard an ear-piercing beep. The connection was disconnected. What happened? Were we discovered? Could it be that the civilian security system has already been upgraded? That shouldn't be the case. The new generation of bionic technology just came out, and it has already been upgraded? It wasn't this fast in the past. The warehouse's security system was installed by Feng Zhao's bodyguards and a certain security company. Maybe it was military equipment? There was a moment of oppressive silence. That was more than half of their net worth. On the surface of the sea outside the island, similar things were happening on many inconspicuous ships. The microdetectors, camera tools, and intelligent theft tools that they had bought from various underground channels at a high price and were said to be manufactured using the new generation of bionic technology never came back. Every single one of them had been disconnected the moment they entered the warehouse. Some seemed to have been trampled, while others just disappeared. Regardless of whether they had flown in, crawled in, or drilled into the ground, all of them had the same result. Forget about stealing bones. They hadn't even succeeded in taking photos. They had even secretly inquired about which company had helped Feng Zhao with the security system. However, they didn't believe what they heard. It was definitely fake information released to confuse people. How sinister. Indeed, the more powerful someone was, the more mysterious they were. Feng Zhao was definitely hiding a trump card. Could it be that Feng Zhao had really sought help from the military? In a newly constructed warehouse on the southeast side of the island, Curly Hair carefully held a reptile that had been trampled out of shape in his mouth and placed it in a box in the corner. 15th. Gathering 20 would allow one more chance to play the game. Chapter 478. The warehouse's security system was controlled by Zui Yu and Yin Biao. They took turns watching over it, so Curly Hair's actions were naturally within their sights. Curly Hair knew that there were surveillance cameras in the warehouse and that this was another test Feng Zhao had given him. Feng Zhao had indeed put in a lot of effort to prevent Curly Hair from developing a bad habit of eating everything he saw. This time, it was also a test to see if Curly Hair had changed. Curly Hair was very happy. He didn't even need to transform to swallow these bugs. He could even swallow them without being detected by the surveillance cameras. Or perhaps he could catch a few and swallow them for fun. But catching 20 would give him another chance to play. Of course, he couldn't bear to swallow any of them. He would count every time he released one, afraid that someone would touch his box. Yin Biao, who was watching over the surveillance room tonight, clicked his tongue in wonder. As expected of a dog that has done inspection work, he had already noticed that there were more bugs in the warehouse tonight. They had clearly been treated to kill them. But as he watched Curly Hair catch them one by one, and placed them into the box Feng Zhao had prepared for him. Yin Biao knew something wasn't right and immediately contacted Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao had said that Yin Biao and Zhuyu would personally guard the warehouse. No one else was to be swapped, and no one else was to be allowed near the surveillance room. If anyone wanted to apply for leave, they could directly look for Feng Zhao. Nanfeng could take over, or Feng Zhao could personally guard the warehouse. If there were any abnormalities in the warehouse, they had to inform Feng Zhao immediately. No information was to be leaked. Yin Biao and Zhuyu thought that Feng Zhao was concerned about the fossils and didn't think there was anything wrong with Feng Zhao's orders. However, when Yin Biao told Feng Zhao about the abnormalities, Feng Zhao only told him to watch the surveillance cameras and not to bother with the bugs Curly Hair had caught. Yin Biao also consulted some of his old comrades who had retired and learned some information. Recently, there had been a large number of bionic devices for sale on the black market. However, they were expensive and very few people bought them. It just so happened that Feng Zhao's fossil news had caused the black market to increase rapidly. He had just received a notification from a comrade. Unexpectedly, the security system wasn't as good as Curly Hair's. Not a single one of those bionic devices had been able to get close to the dinosaur fossils. Yin Biao let out a long sigh as he watched Curly Hair toss a seemingly ordinary strand of grass into the box. He thought to himself, I have to upgrade the security system tomorrow. If he relied on Curly Hair for everything, wouldn't he become a salted fish? Seeing that all the fossils were about to be excavated, it would definitely be a huge regret to be kicked out of the project at this time. They couldn't fall at such a critical moment. Very quickly, the other people on the island discovered that the atmosphere of the excavation team, which used to be joking and laughing while working, was now rather solemn. Furthermore, no matter how busy they were, there would always be a team member in charge of keeping an eye on the surroundings. Under the joint efforts of the 12 teams, all the fossils buried under the island were finally excavated. The bones were preserved relatively well, and there weren't many areas that needed to be reconstructed. After using a computer to simulate the reconstruction of the skeleton, they began to assemble the fossils. The moment they finished assembling the skeleton, they looked up at the skeleton, which was close to 50 meters in length. It was as if they had traveled through time and seen the overlords of the ocean from 70 million years ago. A young staff member at the side was already rambling incoherently. A few of the old professors in charge of assembling the fossils were even more teary-eyed. I never imagined that I would actually be able to see the apex predator of the ocean from 70 million years ago with my own eyes. After an hour of non-stop discussion around the newly excavated huge skeleton, they had no choice but to face a problem. It has to have a name, one of the professors in charge said. After searching through a large amount of information, they couldn't find a corresponding name. Without a doubt, what they had excavated was an unknown species, so they had to give it a name. However, the problem now was that this time, it wasn't a single team that had discovered it. It was a joint excavation of many teams, and the skeleton belonged to the island owner. According to the naming rules, do we have naming rights? What about Feng Zhao? Sai, Feng Zhao, island owner Feng. This naming, you guys can decide, Feng Zhao said. The professors in charge were still thinking about how they would advise Feng Zhao if he gave the name casually. They hadn't expected that Feng Zhao would hand over the naming rights to them. During the old era, in many places, these kinds of ancient vertebrate fossils with scientific research value belonged to the country. Although the management of cultural relics in the new era was different, Feng Zhao didn't really care about it. If not for Curly Hair, Feng Zhao would have directly donated the skeleton to a certain museum. Feng Zhao glanced at Curly Hair. Curly Hair was yawning beside the crate containing the reptiles. Other than games and eating, this dog really wasn't interested in anything else. When he heard that Feng Zhao wanted to hand over the naming rights to them, an old professor was so excited that his whole body trembled. His assistant beside him quickly stuffed 2 pills into the old man's mouth. The 12 excavation teams engaged in another round of intense discussion over the matter of naming. In the end, they named this apex predator of the ocean Poseidonsaur. This was the largest fossil ever discovered. One could tell from its teeth that it ate meat. This apex predator of the ocean during that period was definitely worthy of the word emperor. After that was the archiving. The 12 teams once again engaged in an intense debate. To be precise, the newly unearthed Poseidonsaur should be classified as a marine reptile. In theory, it shouldn't be classified as a dinosaur. However, mainstream folk culture was used to calling any creature that lived during that period that had such a distinctive appearance a dinosaur. However, many paleontologists in the new era suggested a new classification system. There was a large gap in paleontology research in the new era. They only used the limited information left behind from the old era as references and didn't fully trust it. They only believed in their own research. After the archiving was completed, a paleontology professor shook Feng Zhao's hand. I see that you have an affinity with dinosaurs. Are you interested in participating in paleontology research? Feng Zhao. No. This bunch of people asking him to research paleontology was fake. Their objective was actually the Poseidonsaur skeleton. Over the next 2 days, news about the Poseidonsaur flooded the screens of various online platforms. Whether it was archaeology circles, entertainment circles, dinosaur enthusiasts, early childhood education circles, life sciences, or geological research circles, all of them were news about the Poseidonsaur. The masses also harbored a kind of shock and gratification. Turns out such a huge creature existed on our planet. It's not any smaller than those extraterrestrial creatures that have been exposed. They went online and wildly boasted about it. All sorts of stories flew up in their minds as if they had seen it with their own eyes. Those overlords of the oceans that we discovered in the past are now just minions. Unrivaled. Truly unrivaled. A predator at the level of an ocean hegemon. Looking forward to filming a Poseidonsaur movie in the future. I wonder if the Poseidonsaur skeleton will be put on public display in the future? This skeleton is too expensive. I reckon it won't be made public. A model is fine too. When will the Poseidonsaur model be made public? This probably depends on Feng Zhao's decision. I declare that the only person who can step on the Poseidonsaur's head is Feng Zhao. Huh. If you put it that way, it's actually true. Feng Zhao indeed lives on top of the Poseidonsaur's tomb. Literally speaking, there's nothing wrong with stepping on its head. Very quickly, a new topic emerged. Hashtag Feng Zhao. The man who stepped on the Poseidonsaur's head hashtag Nanfeng laughed heartily when he saw the sudden surge of discussion on social media platforms. Because of the Poseidonsaur fossil, he had collected a large sum of rent, not to mention everything else. Boss, you really struck it rich this time. You can return to the $10 billion club after selling the skeleton. I don't intend to sell it, Feng Zhao replied. Nanfeng was flabbergasted. That's right. Such a precious, one-of-a-kind object has to be kept in my hands for at least 2 years. I intend to open a collection hall. Other than the Poseidonsaur, I might add a few more items in the future, Feng Zhao added. A collection hall? Nanfeng recovered from his shock and thought to himself, as expected of boss. He's thinking long-term. I won't sell this fossil for the time being. I'll open my own collection hall for fun. I can also make use of all sorts of peripheral products to make money. Poseidonsaur was the largest creature that had ever existed on this planet. It was possible that there were even larger creatures on other planets, but for paleontologists, they had yet to fully understand the creatures on this planet. So where would they find the energy to look at other planets? Furthermore, people's sentiments toward this planet were irreplaceable. This was the history of human development. Everyone shared a common history. There was a bias in sentiments. Apart from this, according to current policies and management, this planet had strict restrictions on extraterrestrial life. In terms of collection value, this planet was definitely the best. No other items could replace it. Nanfeng was very satisfied that he had guessed Feng Zhao's thoughts. This boss still had an investment mind. Nanfeng looked at the various possible Poseidonsaur appearances that the research team had simulated and sighed. As expected of the ocean's apex predator, no matter which one it is, it looks ferocious. Luckily, it went extinct long ago. I wonder what the universe's apex predator looks like. Nanfeng started fantasizing again. It must be rather powerful. Feng Zhao glanced at Curly Hair, who had been staring at the box and counting bugs. That might not be the case. Some creatures look very cute, but they are actually extremely lethal. Nanfeng. Ha ha ha, boss, you are so humorous. Feng Zhao. You will understand one day. Nanfeng appeared to agree with Feng Zhao, but he was laughing in his heart. All right, you are the boss. Whatever you say is right. Even if you say that Curly Hair is an apex predator, I will support it with both hands. Chapter 479. Reports about the Poseidon Soar were overwhelming, and a large number of paleontological research papers were published. Many things that were previously thought to be impossible in documentaries were also overturned. A student who studied vertebrate paleontology smiled and said in an interview with the media, "Our former teacher once said that documentaries are like archaeological excavations. As the information is constantly updated, it will be constantly slapped in the face." The discovery of the Poseidon Soar is of great significance to us. We also believe that there are many more surprises waiting to be discovered in places we don't know about. The discovery of the Poseidon Soar on Feng Zhao's island made everyone's attention shift from the mainland to the islands and seas. There were definitely more organisms from tens of millions of years ago buried in those deserted places that had luckily avoided the period of destruction. The price of the island had risen. Although it wasn't a big jump, there were more people who were willing to buy the island than before. The price of the island quickly stopped falling and started to rise. There was even a paleontology enthusiast who specially bought an island to build his own research base and set up a new exploration team. Their target was the rock strata under the sea. After the Poseidon Soar was unearthed, Feng Zhao signed a collaboration agreement with the Bryan Museum and the Huangzhou Museum. In the following 2 months, the Poseidon Soar would be shipped to Huangzhou and displayed in the 2 museums. It was said that the online ticket sales were sold out the moment they opened. The tickets that had been on sale for the first 2 months were all snapped up. It was a rather crazy situation. As for the Yinzhou Museum, the curator was on the verge of tears. The Yinzhou Museum had a geographical advantage. After all, Feng Zhao was a Yinzhou native. But, in terms of strength, they still couldn't withstand the pressure of the Poseidon dragon. However, with 2 months of buffer time, they would definitely be ready to welcome the Poseidon Soar. Otherwise, where would he put his face? After the Poseidon Soar left, the attention of all parties also shifted, and Feng Zhao's small island once again quietened down. Feng Zhao planned to build a collection hall, but this island wasn't a good place. He didn't know when he would be out, and he wouldn't be able to deal with anyone who came to the island to cause trouble. He didn't want all the things Curly Hair dug up to be stolen. At the same time, he didn't have enough money on hand. He could only wait until he had enough money. The Poseidon Soar was rented out, and there were also businesses looking for him to work with. However, Feng Zhao's focus was still on the upcoming extraterrestrial performance. He had received an invitation from the organizers. At this moment, Feng Zhao found out who the organizers were that Emo Lang had not told him. Planet Een. The first of the 3 major military bases in the outer space. Other than that, there was too little information. Even the military rarely reported on Planet Een. However, Planet Een was recognized as the place with the highest scientific research capabilities. These are the basic things you need to take note of. I will send you an electronic document with more details. The itinerary will be arranged. When the time comes, someone will notify you. The other party briefed Feng Zhao on the things he needed to take note of and then asked, "Do you have any other questions? Can I bring a dog?" Feng Zhao asked. The person on the other end of the communicator paused for a moment. There was a rare fluctuation in the emotionless voice. "Are you talking about Curly Hair? He can, but other dogs can't. Of course, if you don't have time to feed your dog while you're on Planet Een, we can also help you. At the same time, you can let it interact with our spaceport inspection team." Feng Zhao wasn't surprised that the other party knew about Curly Hair. Curly Hair had been on the radar of several military districts and departments. He had truly rendered meritorious service, and the anti-smuggling departments of various spaceports all wanted to snatch the dog away. Planet Yin's spaceports had indeed had their eyes on Curly Hair, but they didn't say anything after learning that Feng Zhao wasn't willing to let the dog go. Of course, they were also very interested in Feng Zhao's ears. However, Feng Zhao was too focused on music and art. Poaching him was even more difficult. After finishing the call with Planet Yin's organizers, Feng Zhao received an electronic document with instructions on the application for accompanying personnel and pets. Feng Zhao told Nanfeng and the other two about this, but he didn't tell them that the destination was Planet Yin. The three of them expressed that they wanted to tag along. Nanfeng's keen observation skills told him that the place Feng Zhao was going to was definitely of high standards. Thus, he definitely wasn't willing to be left behind. When he heard that Feng Zhao was going to bring Curly Hair, Nanfeng became worried. Didn't they say that the place we are going to is very strict? Even dogs can be brought along? Although they didn't know where exactly they were going, they could still bring a pet dog to such a complicated and strict place. Feng Zhao didn't explain further and only said, "I'll give you the application link. Just help Curly Hair submit the application." Understood, boss. Nanfeng acted quickly and called Yin Biao and Zuoyu to submit the application together. Entourage personnel like them had to face much stricter checks. The first round of checks was a background check. Any inappropriate public comments or tainted records could very well be blocked. Pets also need a background check? Nanfeng was curious, but he still followed Feng Zhao's request and submitted an application for Curly Hair. A minute later, Curly Hair's background check was approved. Nanfeng, were the checks for pets so fast these days? An hour later, Yin Biao passed. Another half an hour later, Zuoyu passed. Nanfeng didn't even get to inform them when it was time for dinner. How did you guys pass the checks so quickly? Then could it be? Nanfeng's face was pale and his voice was trembling. Yin Biao consoled him. It's probably because you have been in the entertainment industry for a long time, so the checks are stricter. Nanfeng's heart was still hanging in the balance. He had been in Huangzhou's entertainment industry before and had even been a low-level worker. He might speak casually and not be very particular about his actions, but he definitely hadn't said or done anything that shouldn't be said. Nanfeng didn't sleep that night. Fortunately, he received news that the checks had been approved the next day and felt at ease. Okay, apply for the next round of checks. The next few rounds of checks went rather smoothly. However, the last round required them to head to a designated location within 7 working days for a physical examination. Feng Zhao went with them. Boss, didn't you already pass all the checks? You don't have to follow. I can handle these, Nanfeng said. Things like a physical examination were simple. I'll go take a look, Feng Zhao said. When they reached the designated location, the 3 humans and 1 dog entered different examination passageways. Feng Zhao found a bench and sat down to read a book. Half an hour later, Curly Hair ran out with his little paws. He was relaxed and didn't feel any pressure. 2 hours later, Yin Biao came out of the examination passageway. Seeing that Zuoyu and Nanfeng weren't around, Yin Biao was a little pleased. See, I'm still the strongest. Having served on planet Baiji for so many years, I still have an advantage. As for Curly Hair, Yin Biao didn't think much of it. He felt that the standards for pet checks had definitely been relaxed. Curly Hair yawned. When Zuoyu came out, Curly Hair yawned again and found a comfortable position to continue lying down. By the time Nanfeng came out of the examination passageway, Curly Hair had already fallen asleep at Feng Zhao's feet. Nanfeng was still feeling a little dizzy and nauseous when he walked out of the examination passageway. The checks this time are a little strict. The physical fitness requirements are really high. From the physical fitness test inside, it could be seen that the venue they were going to this time definitely wouldn't be a comfortable place. Zuoyu mocked, I say, Nanfeng, you used to be from planet Baiji. That's no good. You've regressed. Regressed? You'll have to train harder tomorrow. Yin Biao also agreed. You do need to train harder. Look at you. You can't even beat a dog. Aren't you embarrassed? Nanfeng glanced at Yin Biao and Zuoyu, who were already sitting on the bench, and then at the snoring Curly Hair. No. Impossible. It's impossible that I can't even beat Curly Hair. After being discharged from the military for so many years, have I already regressed to this level? Chapter 480. After all the applications were approved, Feng Zhao declined all the other collaborations. He didn't even attend the opening ceremony of Huangzhou's Poseidonsaur fossil. On the day of the Poseidonsaur exhibition, there was a long queue outside Huangzhou Museum. People attracted by the Poseidonsaur were flushed with excitement. They even endured the slow security check. There were some dinosaur-related toys and other items by the side of the queue. People in line couldn't wait to buy a few toys to play with. After the invited reporters entered the museum, they started snapping pictures of the Poseidonsaur. Not all of them had been allowed to land on Feng Zhao's island, so they hadn't been able to get any photos. Most of them had been forwarding reports from other media outlets. The two curators of Huangzhou Museum and Brian Museum hadn't stopped smiling during the opening ceremony. When they returned to their offices after their interviews, the smiles on the two curators' faces disappeared. The Huangzhou Museum curator's face was ugly as he looked at the few bionic bugs on the table. Brian Museum curator was also rejoicing. If Feng Zhao hadn't reminded us to carry out specialized upgrades, we would have suffered losses. When Feng Zhao had handed over the Poseidonsaur fossil to them, he had advised them to carry out security upgrades for the bionic technology. The two curators had taken this Poseidonsaur exhibition seriously and had taken note of Feng Zhao's suggestion. Before the Poseidonsaur had been handed over, they had gotten their own museums to carry out specialized upgrades. While the two curators were furious and rejoicing, there were still a bunch of people who had designs on the Poseidonsaur. It's fine if Feng Zhao can't enter his warehouse. We can assume that he used some military equipment, but what does it mean that we can't enter Huangzhou or Brian Museum? This technology is outdated. I've spent so much money on something that's outdated. The seller cheated me. The latest model of bionic machinery that the seller had bragged about was all a fucking scam. All that money had been spent on a scam. Outdated technology was worthless. Items on the black market were expensive, but they had never been so fraudulent. Those who felt they had been thoroughly scammed went looking for a refund from the seller. They couldn't find the seller at all. In a fit of rage, they spent a lot of money to kill the original seller and reminded those who came after them. The black market is full of fake goods. Within the T organization, the person who had been ordered to sell the bionic technology fled in panic. Ever since they had discovered that the stolen bionic technology was ineffective against Yinzhou's coastal defenses, the T organization had been thinking of ways to use bionic technology to make more money. Coincidentally, the news of Feng Zhao digging up a fossil had come up. They had seized the opportunity to manufacture a batch of bionic machines and made a killing on the black market. However, it didn't take long for the people who bought the bionic machines to ask for a refund. This made the people of the T organization believe that the bionic technology was a conspiracy against their organization. If it was only for the military, they would admit defeat if they couldn't pass the coastal defense. However, the civilian security system had also been upgraded to the anti-bionic technology version. They had spent so much effort only to steal an outdated technology. Feng Zhao, who had caused all this, had once again stabbed the T organization in the back. After finding out that there were bionic crawlers on the island, Feng Zhao had reported the matter to the higher-ups. After the Huangzhou Museum and Brian Museum, more important places would be upgraded with bionic technology. However, Feng Zhao didn't have the time to pay attention to the security upgrades for the time being. Right now, he was packing up and preparing to head to Planet Een. This time, he would be away for a longer period of time. Feng Zhao informed great-grandfather Feng and great-grandmother Feng. He didn't go into details. All he said was that he had some matters to attend to and that it wouldn't be convenient to contact them during this period. If he couldn't get in touch, he told the two elders not to worry. "Boss, 80 million. Are we going to leave the rabbit at home?" Nanfeng asked. MHM, Feng Zhao glanced at the water tank. He had left the rabbit at the seaside residence and not on the island. If anything happened here, the property management would be able to respond quickly if the alarm went off. All right. Although he was still a little worried, Nanfeng didn't say anything else and continued with his report. The construction team on the island is progressing smoothly. It will be restored by the time we return. Due to the Poseidonsaur fossil, the island had been excavated, rebuilt, and demolished. Now that people had been hired to restore it, the huge pit where the fossil had been dug up had to be filled up, and other parts of the island had to be repaired and rebuilt. After packing up, Feng Zhao received a call from someone sent by the military to pick them up. The flying transport stopped on the tarmac. 2 soldiers came over to verify their identities. Feng Zhao, along with an assistant, 2 bodyguards, and a dog. Nanfeng noticed that the gaze of the soldier checking on Curly Hair lingered on Curly Hair for quite a while, as though he was repeatedly confirming that this was the dog on the application form. After the identity verification of the 4 people and 1 dog was done, the 2 soldiers didn't say anything else and brought them to the flying transport for Yinzhou's military district. Feng Zhao would be flying to the spaceport with the other invited personnel from Yinzhou's military district. Nanfeng and the other 2, 1 from the special forces and 2 from the garrisons on foreign planets, stuck out their chests and straightened their chins, displaying their steely temperament. They couldn't lose face for Feng Zhao when facing people from Yinzhou's military district. However, after boarding the flying transport, the 2 soldiers only glanced at the 3 of them before focusing their attention on Feng Zhao and Curly Hair. The 2 soldiers' orders were to take care of Feng Zhao and his dog. As for Nanfeng and the other 2, they weren't within their scope of care. They just had to verify their identities. Actually, they hadn't come specially to pick up Feng Zhao. They had just completed their mission and were closest to Feng Zhao's residence, so they had been sent over to pick him up. There was still a crate of power and some goods in the tightly shut power cabin. They were all going to be transported to the military district. This trip was just to pick them up along the way. Curly Hair lay quietly at Feng Zhao's feet. That pair of black dog eyes scanned the surroundings, licked his nose, and raised his head to look at Feng Zhao. He snorted twice. Feng Zhao shot a glance at him and reached out to pat his head. Curly Hair lay back down obediently, licking his nose and licking his lips every once in a while. One of the soldiers saw this and asked, "Is he thirsty?" "He is." "Nanfeng, take out his water bowl," Feng Zhao said without a change in expression. "Aye." Nanfeng took out the dog bowl and handed it over. Yin Biao watched this scene from the side and thought to himself, "TSK, pet dogs are so delicate." Feng Zhao took the dog bowl and received the water from the soldier. After thanking him, he poured half a bowl of water in front of Curly Hair and poked Curly Hair's head with his finger as a warning. Ever since Curly Hair had completed his transformation, his diet had expanded, and so had his appetite. He had even been let out to forage for food yesterday. Thirsty? No, he was just gluttonous. Of course, Feng Zhao wouldn't say the truth. He couldn't say it. What else could he say? That Curly Hair was drooling over the power cabin of the flying transport? Feng Zhao was a little worried. It seemed like he still had to keep this dog by his side. Otherwise, he wouldn't be at ease. He had to keep a close eye on Curly Hair this time. If he wasn't careful, Curly Hair might run off to eat some strange food and leave nothing behind. Cliché sorry, I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't write more in the morning. Continue with the short chapter. See you tomorrow. Chapter 481. In the Yinzhou military district, a number of reporters were preparing to interview an armored division that had just returned from a mission. They were discussing the upcoming interview when they heard a reporter exclaim in surprise, "Isn't that Feng Zhao?" The others turned to look. "Looks like it. Judging from the dog beside him, it's Feng Zhao without a doubt. What is he doing in the Yinzhou military district? I just noticed that they alighted from a military flying transport. There were 2 soldiers escorting them. Interesting. What is he up to this time?" A young reporter was about to snap a few photos when he was stopped by the others. The young reporter calmed down and regretted his impulsiveness. Once inside the military district, unless it was an arranged event, it was best not to take photos. Therefore, even if they were dying of curiosity, they still had to control themselves. Otherwise, they would be chased out and their careers would be over. However, even if they didn't take photos, they would still gossip in private. I think Feng Zhao is up to something again. Recently, the whole world has been full of news about him. I thought he was busy with the Poseidonsaur fossil. I never expected to see him here. Now that I think about it, there really hasn't been any news about him recently. The internet is all about the fossil. There's no trace of him. I heard from a friend that many entertainment reporters are watching him, but they can't find him. Entertainment reporters these days have regressed. When I was young, those entertainment reporters were so fast that it gave me a headache. They could dig up news before we even reported it. Indeed, as the reporters had said, because of the Poseidonsaur fossil, everyone had naturally paid attention to Feng Zhao. However, what was different this time was that many investors were also watching Feng Zhao. They had analyzed the excavation process of the Poseidonsaur fossil and believed that Feng Zhao had definitely received news beforehand. That was why he had been so anxious to purchase the island. After analyzing Feng Zhao's rise to fame, they felt that every time he made a move, something big would happen. The Poseidonsaur fossil definitely wasn't the end. This time, they had their eyes on Feng Zhao and paid special attention to his movements. They wanted to know if he had secretly gone somewhere to dig up fossils again. Or perhaps he had discovered something valuable. But he fucking disappeared again. Feng Zhao, his assistant, his bodyguard, and that fossil-digging dog had all fucking disappeared. He hadn't even attended the Poseidonsaur exhibition. There had to be something more important. But there had been no news of him attending any events recently. Investigate. Find out what that brat has been up to recently. Was he trying to stir up trouble again? However, he waited and waited, but there was still no news. Not to mention the investors who were holding their breaths. The netizens who were watching the show were also anxious when they saw that there was no progress. The last time Feng Zhao had appeared in public was in Yinzhou, and Yinzhou netizens had started to contribute. According to convention, Wang Tai, you piece of trash. Wang Tai, come out and work. Wang Tai, look, we even started a crowdfunding campaign. Did you see that? More than 10 million people had joined the event the moment it was launched. Conservatively speaking, it would definitely exceed 100 million by tomorrow. As long as you can dig up news about Feng Zhao, all this money is yours. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Are you happy? As a result, the rapidly rising popularity of the crowdfunding campaign pushed Wang Tai onto the trending topic list. Wang Tai, I thank your whole family. While the internet was abuzz with the crowdfunding scam of Wang Tai, Feng Zhao had already transferred planes from the Yinzhou military district and was headed for the spaceport. They had to stay at the spaceport for 2 days before setting off for Planet Yin. At the spaceport, Feng Zhao met the other artist who had been invited to Planet Yin. He also met an old friend. This was Qiao Tingzheng, a professional villain and wife-flaunting maniac whom Feng Zhao had worked with during the filming of Founding Era. His wife, Windsor, had been invited to Planet Yin to perform. This time, Qiao Tingzheng was accompanying Windsor to Planet Yin as a family member. Qiao Tingzheng was very happy to see Feng Zhao. He said that he would come over to chat with Feng Zhao after he had unpacked his luggage. Nanfeng leaned over and whispered to Feng Zhao, "Boss, I took a look at the artists who were invited this time. You are the youngest among this batch." His seniority was also the lowest. Although he didn't finish his sentence, Feng Zhao understood what Nanfeng meant. His seniority was the lowest, and he might suffer some grievances. However, Feng Zhao was prepared for all these. As they were talking, a middle-aged artist walked past them. His gaze swept past curly hair, who was lying at Feng Zhao's feet. His brows furrowed, and he looked extremely dissatisfied. He then looked at Feng Zhao and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. In the end, he just snorted and stormed off. Feng Zhao got up and was about to greet the other party. Feng Zhao knew this middle-aged artist who had stormed off for unknown reasons. He was David Hull, one of the world's 3 great violin masters. He was also the teacher of the red-haired Fei Harmonic, Fei Harmonic. Recently, Fei Harmonic seemed to have started a long-distance war with Zero and were sparring online. However, Feng Zhao hadn't been following their battle recently and didn't know the results. Unlike the high-profile Faye Harmonic who always appeared in entertainment news, David Hull's teacher was much more low-profile. Other than concerts and lectures, he rarely appeared in public. Fang Zhao had never spoken to David Hull in the past and didn't have many interactions. This was the closest they had gotten to each other. Fang Zhao just didn't know what this world's top violinist was angry about. After David Hull walked some distance away, Nanfeng leaned over and whispered, "I also know that person who just walked past. He's a violin master. His student is Faye Harmonic. He has a high presence in the entertainment industry and is often compared to you. I reckon he doesn't like you, boss. He already has prejudices. Now that he sees you bringing a dog to a performance, he will definitely be even more displeased." Nanfeng felt that he had found the truth. Even if it wasn't the truth, it was very close. Fang Zhao didn't think it was as Nanfeng said, but he really didn't understand where David Hull's anger had come from. This question wasn't answered until Xiao Tingjing came over to chat with him. "David Hull? You mean him?" Xiao Tingjing glanced at Fang Zhao and Curly Hair, who was lying beside him. "He's definitely angry, because his application for his beloved dog wasn't approved. Before coming here, I even heard people consoling him that he couldn't bring a dog when he went to a foreign planet. He was really depressed. Now, he sees you bringing a dog when he just arrived at the spaceport. How can he not be angry?" Xiao Tingjing told Fang Zhao about this world-renowned violin master's path to becoming a dog slave. This was all told to him by his wife. This master's favorite things now, besides his violin, are his dogs. In front of these two, even his own disciple, Faye Harmonic, has to give way. Here, this is his beloved dog. Xiao Tingjing took out a photo of David Hull's beloved dog and showed it to Fang Zhao. David Hull's beloved dog was an artificially bred breed from the new era. It had the genes of 3 elegant dog breeds from the old era and a hunting dog. Its signature was its head of long hair. Nanfeng also came over to take a look. This master seems to have a special liking for long hair. Xiao Tingjing also laughed heartily. That's right, he quite likes long hair. As he said that, Xiao Tingjing glanced at Curly Hair by Fang Zhao's feet. "Your dog's hair isn't particularly long. He probably doesn't like it, but you don't have to worry. He is still very good to dogs. He is just a little envious and jealous of you. Don't worry, he isn't really angry at you." Xiao Tingjing glanced at Curly Hair. He knew that this dog had made big news recently. He really dug out the first Poseidonsaur fossil? "That's him," Fang Zhao replied. "I thought it was just nonsense in the news." Xiao Tingjing looked at Curly Hair as though he was looking at a rare object. Curly Hair stuck out his tongue. Droplets of saliva dripped down as he licked his lips incessantly. He seemed a little restless. "Does he feel that it's too hot in here?" Xiao Tingjing asked. Although he didn't know much about dogs, he had some general knowledge. For example, dogs would stick out their tongues and salivate to dissipate heat when they were hot. No, that couldn't be considered saliva. It should be the dog's sweat. However, Xiao Tingjing looked at the temperature and air pressure in the room. They were all very normal. Logically speaking, this shouldn't be the case. He just isn't used to it, Fang Zhao said calmly. That's right. It's very difficult for pet dogs to adapt to the atmosphere of a spaceport. I heard that dogs are afraid of heights. Running into outer space can also be considered a type of fear. Haha. Xiao Tingjing was amused by his own joke. Fang Zhao also smiled politely, but he was actually even more worried. This dog had gone to the ocean to forage for food the day before. He hadn't transformed frequently and hadn't expended much energy. Why would he be hungry? He was just gluttonous. There were too many energy sources in outer spaceports. For Curly Hair, whose diet had expanded, this was a huge temptation. Fang Zhao even suspected that if he didn't keep a close eye on Curly Hair, this dog would really eat up the entire outer spaceport. After seeing Curly Hair's reaction, Fang Zhao had strengthened his restrictions on Curly Hair. He had also given Curly Hair lessons in private. Only then did Curly Hair restrain himself a little. At the very least, he didn't keep drooling. His eyes still kept darting around. Fang Zhao and the others who were invited to perform were called over from time to time for meetings. they couldn't always bring Curly Hair with them. Thus, he handed the task of keeping a close eye on Curly Hair to Nanfeng and the other two. He had brought the three of them over to keep an eye on the dog. You guys keep a close eye on him. Nanfeng and the other two had solemn expressions. Understood. Nobody should even think about stealing a dog. Chapter 482. Planetine was a place where the entire planet was militarized. Apart from a small number of residences, large areas were used for all sorts of product experiments and military exercises. The natural environment here wasn't suitable for human survival. However, due to Planet Yin's rich energy and mineral resources, the first extraterrestrial military base had been built here. More than 90% of the current top-notch space technology came from Planet Yin. Fang Zhao and the others hadn't been able to see the outside world from the moment they set off until they landed on Planet Yin. They had even signed confidentiality agreements. In short, they were invited to participate in the cultural joint performance. As for the rest, they didn't need to be too curious. By the time Fang Zhao and the others got off the flying transport, they had already landed in the designated area on Planet Yin. Planet Yin's special nature meant that there was very little information about it on the internet. Even the veterans who had been here many times only knew some information about the arts. They didn't know much else, and they didn't dare to ask too much. As a first-timer, Fang Zhao didn't know much. However, he was sure that Planet Yin's energy and mineral resources were extremely rich. Curly Hair couldn't stop drooling. When they got off the flying transport, they could see a huge protective shield above them. They could only move around indoors without protective clothing, but it didn't feel cramped or cramped. These are the accommodations that have been arranged for the teachers. A person in Planet in uniform introduced them. This was a reception center with dormitories, a canteen, and an activity area. They had already been informed of the things they needed to take note of. They had also signed confidentiality agreements. All they had to do was listen to the arrangements and perform with Planet Yin's bands and dance troupes. They were free to do whatever they wanted in their free time. Family members could stay together, but assistants and bodyguards were assigned to another building. Fang Zhao, your dormitory is over there, the guide said. Can I bring a dog? Fang Zhao asked.
Yes.
Fang Zhao brought his access card to his assigned room. The space wasn't big, but it was well equipped. There were 2 rooms, a living room, a bedroom, and a study. The decor was very high-tech and artistic. Apart from that, there was also a dog bowl and toilet. It was indeed very considerate. After a simple arrangement, the leader gathered them together and held a small meeting. He explained the plan for the next few days and their respective tasks one by one. Their invited team consisted of musicians, dancers, actors, painters, and so on. Everyone had different specialties, so they would work with different people after arriving on Planet Yin. Fang Zhao's collaborator was a member of a certain youth art troupe on Planet Yin. The members of Planet Yin's art troupes were mostly amateurs and couldn't be held to the standards of professionals. Fang Zhao, you are the conductor of the youth band. Is there a problem? The leader asked. No problem, Fang Zhao replied. The song that Planet Yin's youth band had chosen was Imolang's masterpiece. It was the ending song for the epic drama series Founding Era. It was the 10-minute-long legend. In response, Imolang expressed that Fang Zhao had to be the commander. Fang Zhao had participated in the composition of this song, so he understood it better than anyone else. This was also a test that Imolang had given Fang Zhao. After the meeting, everyone went back to rest. In the afternoon, they were arranged to visit the exhibition hall. They were the only ones who were invited. Most of the entourage members were not allowed to enter. As a family member, even Xiao Tingjing was not allowed to enter, not to mention bodyguards and assistants. Thus, Fang Zhao arranged for Nanfeng and the other 2 to look after the dogs and didn't let them follow. The exhibition hall here was basically filled with products of aerospace research. This was Fang Zhao's first time here, so he was very interested in these things. In the exhibition hall, Fang Zhao was most interested in the warp engine. The warp engine had ushered in the era of space travel and was publicly recognized as the greatest invention of the new era. The exhibition hall guide was introducing information related to the warp engine. Placed before us is a part of the first generation of the warp engine. It was this that made space warp possible. However, the energy required to maintain the stability of the warp engine far exceeded everyone's imagination. The old energy source was unable to support the engine's operation, so people searched for a new energy source. The guide talked about the warp engine, the innovation of energy technology, and mining, but he didn't mention the main points. For example, how the warp engine was born, how long it took to develop, how far it could be supported, and other questions that Feng Zhao was particularly curious about were not mentioned. However, everyone knew that here, they would listen to what others said and not ask too many questions. The things that the guide didn't say definitely couldn't be said. No matter how much you asked, they wouldn't tell you. The people in front, from the discovery of power ores to the continuous upgrading of energy conversion technology to the classification and mining of power ores, were like listening to a story to the rest of the troupe. Perhaps they just listened and laughed, or perhaps they already knew about it. Feng Zhao was listening very seriously. He couldn't understand the warp engine in depth, but he still wanted to hear more about power ores. The more he knew, the more Feng Zhao felt moved. Too fast. The breakthroughs in new energy and space technology in the new era were too fast, far exceeding Feng Zhao's expectations. During the period of destruction, he had asked the relevant researchers many times if it was possible to achieve interstellar travel. But the reply he had received had been, perhaps there might not be any breakthroughs even on the day of the extinction of mankind. However, after the period of destruction ended and the new era had been established for only 100 years, the warp engine had already appeared, creating the veteran dream team of space exploration in the new era. This was probably something that no one who had lived during the period of destruction could have predicted. 100 years might seem like a long time, but Feng Zhao was all too clear about the situation during the later stages of the period of destruction. From his point of view, 100 years could only be used for recovery and reconstruction. From Feng Zhao's point of view, the speed of development in the new era could be considered a miracle. The warp engine had appeared in the first 100 years of the new era. Now that it was more than 500 years into the new era, who knew how many generations of warp engines had been developed? It was a pity that he couldn't see it. However, being able to see a portion of the first-generation warp engine was already pretty good. Feng Zhao felt gratified. Other people didn't know how Feng Zhao felt. The invited artists might not be interested in these things, so they didn't stay long at the exhibition hall. After this, there was a small fan meeting. Fans from various departments on planet Een came to meet their idols. There were autographs and photos. There were many people, but it wasn't chaotic. Everyone was very disciplined. Planet Yin's special management environment made this kind of fan meeting even more efficient. The fans that could come had also been screened. There were too many people, so they could only control the number. Feng Zhao's fans consisted of both young and old people, especially those who had read the Founding Era Yenzhou chapter. They looked at Feng Zhao with pity in their eyes. Not far away, two organizers of the fan meeting walked over. They smiled when they saw the long queue at Feng Zhao's side. I couldn't tell that Feng Zhao has so many fans on planet Een. Everyone in my family likes him. This kid isn't bad. It's just a pity that he couldn't continue developing in the military. Speaking of which, why don't I see little Yuan? Didn't he say that he wanted to prepare a big gift for Feng Zhao? That's right. I didn't see him even after looking around. Ever since the list of invited artists was finalized, that kid Yuan Zhang kept asking me about the invited artists. I even gave him the timetable. There's a time limit for the fan meeting. There's only half an hour left. Did he forget to sleep? Or was he too engrossed in work and forgot about the time? Or did he have a mission and can't come out? Planet Yin's Warp Engine Technology Research Institute. At the security checkpoint at the entrance of the courtyard, a young man who looked to be around the age of a university student was sitting on a chair, tapping his fingers impatiently on the table and looking at the time. The security personnel of the research institute sitting opposite him, expressionlessly removed the last item from the gift box and placed it on the table. "So, you want to gift these?" The security personnel pointed at the table. "An interstellar fleet? To a celebrity?" "That's right. But these haven't been made public yet. Let's not talk about the confidential technology involved. At least 2 of these models might not be made public for the next decade." "These are just models. Models won't do either. Please be rational." Yuan Zheng took a deep breath. "I chase stars, but I'm a rational fan. I'm different from those brainless fans who blindly brag without any bottom line. Please don't belittle my intelligence. I don't doubt the intelligence of a gold badge engineer." The security personnel's expression didn't change. "Wasn't your idol Great Master Hung Xian? Now, my idol is also Great Master Hung Xian. He's a god in our research institute's hearts. We can only look up to him. However, my big brother Zhao is still more down to earth. Big brother Zhao is my idol. I just feel that he's super awesome. What do you chase after stars for? It's the sparkling things on their bodies. My big brother Zhao is a huge sparkling object. Tell me, who in the entertainment industry can obtain so many honors at his age?" The security personnel nodded in understanding. He knew Feng Zhao. His influence across industries was too great, not to mention Feng Zhao's military merits. There were very few people in their 20s who were invited to perform here. Seeing the security personnel's expression soften, Yuan Zheng continued, "Have you heard of this saying? The target is in front, the idol is by your side. That is a kind of spiritual motivation, understand? Progress together, understand? I still have a poster of my big brother Zhao in my room." The security personnel nodded again in understanding. He had heard that when Feng Zhao had won the Galaxy Supernova Award, the highest award in the arts, Yuan Zheng had been promoted from a silver badge engineer to a gold badge engineer. Of course, he could understand that youngsters were impulsive when chasing stars. When he had been young, he had also idolized a Majo basketball star. Unfortunately, that basketball star hadn't passed the vetting process and couldn't come. People who were invited here had to go through layers of vetting. Besides their own professional abilities, they also had to examine their character and other aspects. In comparison, Yuan Zheng could be considered lucky. At least he could see his idol in person. However, even if Feng Zhao was capable, he was still too young and might not be able to keep secrets. It was better not to give away the undisclosed model. Seeing the security personnel tense up again, Yuan Zheng hurriedly played the emotional card. "Uncle, you watched me grow up. You know what kind of person I am. Of course, I have to display my own achievements in front of my idol. Uncle, you have also chased after stars before. You can understand, right? Right now, I have only made models of some of the models I have participated in. Some key areas have been blurred out. I have absolutely no intention of leaking secrets." "Of course I believe you." The security personnel's expression softened. However, second application denied. "Uncle." Yuan Zheng had a pitiful look on his face. "All models have been detained. Sorry, this is my duty." Yuan Zheng's tears were about to fall. He had prepared for a long time to make a space fleet model. He had been stopped at the security checkpoint. Seeing Yuan Zheng sitting there dejectedly, the security personnel sighed. "How about this?" Yuan Zheng raised his head and looked at the security personnel, his eyes filled with anticipation. He watched as the security personnel picked up one of the spaceship models, dismantled the engine part, and placed it in front of Yuan Zheng. Yuan Zheng sat there in a daze, holding his breath. Then, with a face of despair, he said, "It wasn't easy for my big brother Zhao to come and perform, and I gave him a spare part?" The security personnel said expressionlessly, "This is the bottom line. Little friend, chasing stars needs to be rational." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.